This lighting is not great. We're talking about House of the Dragon today. House of the Dragon, I'm so excited. I've talked about Game of Thrones a lot. It was one of my most favorite shows until obviously. Do I have to say it? I mean, we all know. And then House of the Dragon came out, and I wanted to play Rhaenyra. It's fine they didn't cast me. It's like whatever. That was like something before House of the Dragon was even a concept. I was like, I'm gonna be Rhaenyra eventually one day when they do make that. I'm a prophet is what I'm saying, and I'm offended that they didn't choose me before I predicted it. Maybe I'm a dreamer. So I love House of the Dragon, and I wanted to do a little bit of a recap in the style of Mike's Mike and Nicole Raffi and everyone else who's doing it like that now, but Mike's Mike was the original and credit must be given where credit is due. Trigger warnings for child death, trauma, sexual abuse. It's a Game of Thrones show, so proceed with caution. We will be recapping those sorts of events. There's a lot of characters. This isn't even all of the pictures I printed out. There's a lot of characters and there's a lot of actors because some of the characters age up and then they switch the actors out. Some of them 3 times, Laenor and Laena. Why did they give them 3? I understand why. I understand why, but it makes my life harder. Light doesn't exist in TV series anymore, so everything's really dark. You know, some of the pictures like Fabian Frankel here, who deserves only the best, and he's a king and I love him, and I'm 1 degree removed from him. He gets a sexy little slutty little red carpet photo, and I wish I thought of that for everyone else because the lighting in the show is moody and horrible. And you can't even see half the people, so why did I try? More disclaimers is that I only have the older versions of some characters on here, and then I have the youngers for some, like Alicent and Rhaenyra. I have their younger versions here, and I will use their older versions, but for Laenor and Laena, I only have their eldest version here because they have 3 fucking actors playing them, and I don't want to waste that much ink. Same with like the next generation of these people, which we'll get to later. They have a bunch of actors playing them. I only printed out the older ones because as we're getting to season 2, I'm assuming that when they do flashbacks, they'll only be using those older actors. And so I figured it'd be easier to put that face to the name. So all that out of the way, let's get into it. But before we start, let me kind of go through how this is looking out in my brain. I wanted to do kind of like a family tree, but dude, that's so confusing. Google it, okay? The Targaryens, the family tree, first of all, is like a Venn diagram. Sometimes they branch out, sometimes they don't. I have Viserys up top here. He is pretty much, when we start the series, king. We'll get to that. I have his wife up here, Emma, who was technically an Arryn, who becomes Emma Targaryen when she marries Viserys. They have 1 live child, Rhaenyra Targaryen, the legend, the icon, who younger versions played by Millie Alcock, deserves all the roses. They've had other children too who either were miscarried or stillborn. This is our royal family. Viserys has a brother named Daemon, who's played by Matt Smith. I have short-haired Daemon here, who only is 1 episode. They give Daemon short hair for 1 episode, and they need to bring him back. He looks so good with this haircut. I don't know why they give him, I know why they give him the long hair, but we need short hair Daemon back, bring him back. And then we have Rhaenys Targaryen. Rhaenys is Viserys' cousin. This is important. Rhaenys Targaryen is married to Corlys Velaryon. Velaryons are also from Old Valyria. If you don't know what Old Valyria is in Essos. So the show takes place in Westeros, which kind of think of it as like England. And then Essos is kind of like in the Middle East. Westeros is west and Essos is east. It's that simple. Old-timey Essos. There was this place called Valyria, which is where the Targaryens and the Valerians are from. Old Valyria got burned to the ground. There's a whole other like plot line to that. This happened like years ago. There was Daenerys the Dreamer, blah, blah, blah. That is also where Aegon and his sister wives flew over to conquer Westeros. So, I mean, we're not here to recap that. That's just so if you didn't know, Velaryons are also from Old Valyria. They have white hair, so you know that they're also kind of magical, but they're not, because they don't have dragons. So whereas the Targaryens have dragons, they're really good at the navy. So Corlys Velaryon, he has a brother, Vaemon. Rhaenys and Corlys have their eldest daughter, Laena, who is beautiful, and then they have a son, Laenor, who is gay. That's a spoiler, but He's gay and we love him. This is Massaria. How do I say this? She and Damon are hooking up. She is like from the slums, basically. Flea Bottom, Street of Silk. So basically she like works in a brothel and they like, that's like Damon's, oh, I don't want to call her that, but he's like, that's like his whore. And then this right here is the crab feeder. They kind of set him up as the antagonist at the beginning of the show. He's a very like inconsequential, like he's important, but also it's like like he's kind of there. And the reason why you feel that is for a reason that we will get to. We'll get to a lot of these things. I'm so sorry, but I have to lay it out. The foundation has to be laid out, okay? That's a crab feeder. He's a prince from Volantis, Essos, okay? There's like a bunch of people across the pond really in Essos that are not a fan of Westerosi customs. So they're called the Triarchy. It's like a bunch of the 3 big cities in Essos, and they all want to wish death upon Westerosi people. So he's a prince from over there, and he gets a bunch of the people together and they go storm the Stepstones, which is kind of like where a lot of trading from Essos comes into Westeros. So it's like a big deal. And again, we'll get to that. This is Sir Criston Cole. He'll become important in later on, but he's hot. That's basically his biggest thing, is that he's hot. Sir Otto Hightower, don't boo, okay? He's hot too. He's a dick. He is the hand of the king. The Hightowers are really important. We don't see them in the original Game of Thrones series because they don't exist anymore. They don't really exist. They used to be in charge of the Reach, which is where the Tyrells, if you remember, Marjorie, who married Joffrey, as well as Tommen, as well as her gay little brother, and the iconic Olenna, right? So they're in charge of the Reach in Game of Thrones, which is in the future. This is like 200 years prior to the events of Game of Thrones. So the Hightowers were originally like in charge of the Reach, and then they screwed up. So Otto is the hand of the king, and he's actually pretty good at his job, but we don't like him. Boo, boo, he sucks. And then he has a daughter, Alicent. So this picture, actually, this is her, spoiler alert, in her wedding outfit that they cut this scene, but she looks so cute. So this is his daughter, Alicent Hightower, and she and Rhaenyra are besties at the beginning. So these people kind of come into play later, especially these two. These are the Strongs. They're not like a super important house. They're kind of stationed in Harrenhal, and I say kind of because Lionel Strong is serving on the council to Viserys, so he's staying in King's Landing, as well as his sons, Harwin Strong. Oh, Harwin Strong. He's so hot. You deserve better, King. Harwin Strong, who I believe is the elder one, and he's supposed to inherit Harrenhal after Lionel. And then there's Larys Strong, who's a creep. Harwin's a really great soldier. He's a gold cloak, so he's part of the City Watch, which is like the cops. Boo, he's a cop, but he's hot. So what do we do with that? And then there's Larys. He has something's up with his foot, a birth defect, so he can't be a good soldier. So he's actually a gossipy little whore, and we don't love him for that. Normally we would stand, but we don't. So that's what's going on here in our first iteration of the Wall. The Wall will evolve as we get to the second half of the season. Like I said, it starts about 200 years prior to the events of Game of Thrones, 172 to be exact. Episode 1's called The Heirs of the Dragon, and this is where they're setting it up. There's a lot of time jumps. So we open on Rhaenyra as an adult narrating the inciting incident of this family's journey, okay? There was this other king who I don't have printed out on here because you wouldn't remember him anyway, okay? His name's Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys was a very peaceful king. He came after Maegor, who was Maegor the Cruel, but then he died. So who could be his heirs were Viserys or Rhaenys. Shocking, because woman can't be on throne. Woman can't be on Iron Throne. No. Remember this will become important later. So basically, all the great lords gathered and they voted on who would be heir because Jaehaerys didn't name an heir before he passed. And they were all like, well, obviously we're not going to put the woman on the throne. Boo. Even though she would be the better queen. They don't say that. Other people do throughout the series. It's true. She would be the better. She's a much better at politicking than Viserys. Viserys is kind of like we love him. He's so kind and so sweet. He is a huge pushover, right? And he's very easily manipulated. But Viserys ends up getting chosen by the other great lords of the Seven Kingdoms and is placed upon the throne as the king. So now he's King Viserys the First. One of the lines that is said in this voiceover is, "The only thing that could tear down the House of the Dragon is itself." And this, my friends, is the thesis of the show. This is probably how they pitched the show, dare I say. This is kind of like the whole plot of the show. That's why it's called House of the Dragon. And then we got the little card where it is the 9th year of King Viserys the First's reign, and again 172 years before the death of the Mad King Aerys, who was Daenerys, and Viserys, that is Daenerys's brother, if you can remember. They have the same name. All the Targaryens have like the same 5 names, okay? And this is going to get more confusing as they start giving birth, all right? Now we get to the actual plot of the show. Lord Jesus. Rhaenyra is coming in on her dragon, Syrac, and she meets up with her little bestie, Alicent, who's kind of like her exact opposite. Alicent is very reserved and shy. You know, she does this thing where she like gets nervous and she bites her fingers, and she has anxiety, and she's also very bookish. She loves histories. And then also, guess what, guys? There's a homoerotic relationship happening between the two of them. Emily Carey, I believe is her name, who plays Alicent, is literally gay, okay? And like, I don't know what Millie identifies as, but I do remember seeing an interview, and I don't know if I can find it, and if I can, I'll put it in here, where she's basically playing the gay subtext in the scene. So like, they acknowledge it's gay. Basically, there's a part where Alicent comments on how big Syrax? Oh my god, no, I'm freaking out. How big Rhaenyra's dragon has gotten, and Rhaenyra's like, almost enough for 2 people to ride it, wink wink. And Alicent's like, I'm much more comfortable being the spectator. Ooh, they're gay. There is no heterosexual explanation for this. You're a teenage girl, you're gonna have a very intense homoerotic relationship with your best girlfriend. It just happens. It's a canon event and you can't avoid it. Basically, they go back to the castle. Emma is pregnant. Oh my god. And she's like about to give birth. And everyone's like, oh my god, is it going to be a boy or a girl? Because if it's a boy, then Viserys officially has a male heir. And everyone was like very concerned what he was going to do if he didn't. Like, who was going to get the throne? Because we already dealt with this 9 years ago. So this is crazy. Rhaenyra goes to Emma and is like, how's it going, girly? How's the birthing going? And Emma kind of says a couple of things to Rhaenyra. Emma says that the discomfort in giving birth is how women serve the realm, and that, quote, the childbed is our battlefield, end quote. Again, this is kind of like the big thesis of the show. One thing I really like the House of the Dragon does that Game of Thrones doesn't really do is that they love women, okay? Do the women in this show suffer a lot of violence and horrible things? Yes. However, it's more tasteful. And also, I don't want to say supported and integral to the story, but it is, because we have actual like female characters, like female main characters that aren't just like devices to support men's journeys. Like Rhaenyra is like central character. The plot revolves around her and Alicent, really. So the King's Council is meeting all while Emma is giving birth, and basically they talk about the issue. Oh my god, am I British? The issue of the triarchy and the stepstones. Now, if you remember what I said a couple minutes ago, the triarchy were these people in Essos who really don't like Westeros and they want to kill everyone. And so there is the prince whose name it's just going to get confusing, okay? Because just remember his name's the Crab Feeder, and that's because he feeds his enemies to the crabs. And they're like, this is going to be an issue because like we need the stepstones, because the stepstones is how we get all of our trade from Essos. Lord Corlys is like really leading the charge on this conversation. Lord Corlys right over here, the Velaryon. Yeah. So he's really leading the charge in this conversation because his family lives at Driftmark, which is right on the stepstone. So basically, he has a vested interest in this issue for a couple of reasons, mostly because his family lives there and that's like where war is happening, like right in front of him on the beach, but also because his whole family deals with ships in the Navy. And so if their ports are affected, like that's going to affect their family's like livelihood. So like he's like, guys, like we should really pay attention to this. And Viserys is especially like, I don't really want to focus on that, mostly because my wife's giving birth and like we're gonna have a party. They're gonna have a tourney. Viserys is like almost positive it's gonna be a boy. He's like, I just know. He's like, I had a vision, because Viserys thinks he's like a dreamer. Targaryens are either like dreamers or dragon riders, and like dragon riders are more frequent in the Targaryens because every Targaryen is born with a dragon egg, like put in their cradle from a clutch, and so they all like are born with dragons, and so most of them become dragon riders, but not all of them are dreamers because not everyone can just have like prophecies. Oh my god, I sound crazy. So Viserys has like this idea that he's gonna have a male heir, but he's been hoping for a male heir every single time, so everyone's kind of like, oh, okay, but he's like, they're gonna have a tourney. What do they call it? Yes, so it's like the tourney for the king's heir, and so basically he's like, Corlys, shut up, I want to start talking about the tourney because that's what's really important. Also, Daemon is also on the king's council, so who's there at the council is Viserys, obviously, because he's king. Otto, because he's the hand of the king. Lord Lionel Strong is there. I don't remember what he does on the council. Honestly, that doesn't really come up really ever until later. He's there too. And then there's Lord Corlys, and then some others who's not on here because it doesn't really matter. I mean, they do matter. I care about them, but like if you're watching this and you're like, I just need a quick little recap, like you don't, it doesn't matter, you're fine. Daemon is on the council. He's commander of the city watch, but he is not there, and everyone's like, where's Daemon? No one knows. He's a bad boy, and basically he hasn't been very good at his job as commander of the city watch. But basically Daemon is in King's Landing. They didn't know that he was there before, but Rhaenyra found him sitting on the Iron Throne, which is like, oh my god, blasphemy. And like this kind of sets up this idea that one, again, Daemon is a bad guy, and also that he has this idea that like he wants power. In this instance, it's clear they're like kind of setting up that he wants to be king. He's actually kind of a very confusing and interesting character because a lot of times he does things that I'm like, Daemon, why would you do that? There were so many other things you could have done. Rhaenyra finds him in the throne room sitting upon the Iron Throne, which is a big no-no. The only person who can sit there is the king, who again is Viserys, his brother. Rhaenyra and Daemon have this cute little thing where they only talk to each other in High Valyrian, especially when they're talking about things that are important. It's like really cute and also a little flirty. And yes, if you're that's her uncle. Yes, this is Game of Thrones, okay? There's a lot of incest, okay? You're just gonna have to get past that, okay? And unlike in Game of Thrones, the series, where everyone was like, ew, incest, this is very much like, oh, incest. It's just kind of like a thing. Like you kind of like almost like kind of want them to get together. Ooh, I know, but they're uncle and niece. Whatever. Oh, whatever. We're here, okay? Just like there's dragons and there's like a crab guy who feeds people to crabs. Just like get over it. Daemon doesn't believe that Emma is going to give birth to a boy. Technically, Daemon is the heir to the throne if Viserys dies, because he's like the only male relative to Viserys. So he's like, yeah, there's not going to be an heir regardless, so it's going to be me, and that's why I'm sitting on the throne. He gives Rhaenyra a really pretty necklace. Again, flirty vibes. Yes, uncle and niece, but also like kind of sexy. Alicent and Rhaenyra are sitting underneath a weirwood tree in the Godswood in the Red Keep, which is like the castle in King's Landing where they live. There is something called the Godswood. So there's the old gods and there's the gods of the seven, which there's no like religious part really in the first half. It doesn't get religious until like episode 7. Weirwood trees, which are like these creepy trees with red leaves and faces on them that are said to have spirits of the old gods in them. The reason why it's in the Red Keep even to begin with is because it's basically just like acknowledging that when some lords come to visit, they might worship the old gods. So they have the Godswood there so that when they come and visit the Red Keep, they can still pray. People like to use it as kind of like their hangout session, and a lot of times in really emotional times of need or like secrecy, they'll go to the Godswood because like who else would be there? Because no one in King's Landing like worships the old gods, so like this is secret, but also like it's not because everyone's going there. Alicent and Rhaenyra are like hanging out under the weirwood tree in the Godswood like they always do, and they're like reading, and there is again is no heterosexual explanation for this. It's just gay. It's gay, it's sapphic, and it is what it is. They are practicing history and they talk about Nymeria, who Arya was famously obsessed with. She named her, I almost called it a werewolf, direwolf, Nymeria. Nymeria, in my opinion, is also a gay icon, and I think they just announced that they're going to do a spin-off of Nymeria. She's a really cool female soldier. The important thing about this scene is one, again, we're establishing that there's gay vibes going on between these two, and also Rhaenyra rips out a piece of the book and gives it to Alicent, and it's basically like, to remember. It's also important to note that Viserys, every time he sits on the Iron Throne, he gets hurt, because the Iron Throne, if you didn't know, is a throne made of swords of all the people that Aegon the Conqueror conquered. Ooh, they colonized. Ooh, it's colonization. It always is. It's made out of swords, and so every time he sits down, he gets hurt. And this is a metaphor for how a couple things, but mostly that he's not fit to rule and that he's literally going to get destroyed by the burden of the throne. Ooh, that is what visual media is for visual metaphors. And House of the Dragon truly does this right in a lot of ways. So he's getting a lot of infections, and they start off really small, but it gets worse throughout the series, just so you know. And Lord Otto is there as the maesters, who are kind of like the surgeons, I guess. There are a lot of other things too, but for all intents and purposes right now, they're surgeons. They're like doing little leeches and like cleaning up the wounds. And because it's from the throne, Otto's like, don't tell anyone that he's getting hurt from the throne, because the people know it's happened before that if they're hurt by the throne, they're probably not a good king in one way or another. So Otto's like, keep it hush hush, babes. Viserys and Emma have a tender moment together in the bath. Emma is still very pregnant and like kind of in labor. She's having a very long, tough labor with this one. And she basically tells him like, I don't want to have any more kids. She's like, I know you want a boy so badly. Like, I understand. And I'm so sorry, King. I'm so sorry I could not do that for you. Like, I know it's horrible and I like failed you as a wife and a duty. Also, Emma, no, you didn't. You're perfect. She's like, dude, like my body literally can't take it. Oh, girl, Emma, if only you knew. If only you knew, Emma. So Viserys is obviously like a little like boo, but he truly does love her. And so they like have this really sweet moment where he's basically like, fine. Emma does confirm that like all their other kids like died. Like it wasn't just like, oh, like I can't have kids. Like I haven't conceived. Like they conceived. She's lost like 6 pregnancies. It's like actually horrible. And like obviously that's not good for her body in multiple ways because she's lost them in multiple ways. Rhaenyra is the only one that survived. And Rhaenyra is like 14, I think, at the beginning of this. And so Viserys like understands because obviously he loves Emma so much. Like this is truly like a match of love, which is very rare. Daemon sends the city watch onto the city and they literally just go ham. Like they find a bunch of criminals and they just start like chopping off. It's not funny. They're chopping off body parts. They're chopping off fingers. They're chopping off tongues. They're chopping off dicks. Like it's just like chop, 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 chop. So much chopping that they get like a full horse cart and put a bunch of body parts on that horse cart and it's like full and they like cart it off. It's like, oh my God, horrible. And like, are these people all criminals? Yes, but everyone's like, did you have to go about it that way? And then Otto and the council confront Daemon. They're like, dude, like you literally like can't do that. Like that was just like horrible. And Otto and Daemon get like really into it and they're insulting each other's wives because Daemon actually is married to this lady Rhea in the Vale. And he's like, she's a bitch and she's ugly. And she's not. And she doesn't like him either, frankly. It was a match out of political convenience. And they all acknowledge that. So basically Otto's like, why don't you go home to your wife and maybe like consummate your marriage? And Daemon's like, isn't your wife dead? And everyone's like, ooh, that's right, because Otto's wife is dead. They don't like each other, if that wasn't clear. And then so like right after this, Daemon goes to the brothel where he's fucking Massaria. Frankly, he like can't keep it up, but she's basically like, I could get you a whore that has white hair because you know you Targaryens like your family. And he gets really mad and he's like, oh, ugh. Literally everyone is watching him fuck her, so it is kind of weird. And like Massaria has to comfort him and she's basically like, you're a Targaryen, blah 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 blah, but Daemon's still sad. The tourney does happen and Emma goes into labor and they juxtapose a lot of the scenes at the tourney with Emma being in labor. It's really to solidify what Emma said at the beginning, that the childbed is the women's battlefield. Sir Criston Cole, whose face is not revealed at this point, is really doing really well at the tourney. Everyone basically is like, he's this base-born son from Dorne who's been serving in some other lord's court. Not only has there not been a war during Viserys' reign, there also hasn't been a war during Jaehaerys. It's only been Maegor, who was before Jaehaerys, which was like 70 years ago. So no one's seen actual battle except Sir Criston Cole because he's Dornish and there's some wars going on in Dorne and things like that. And he's really good at jousting. He's just like doing really well. Daemon chooses to joust against Otto's eldest son to like get back at him for basically telling him to go fuck off and fuck his wife. Daemon knocks his son off his horse and like really injures him and then asks for Alicent's favor. He's like, I would really love it, Alicent. And Alicent's like, okay. And then Otto looks at her and is like, uh-oh, Emma's having a bad time in labor. Basically, the baby is turned the wrong way and it's really painful for her. And they let Viserys know and he leaves the tourney to go be by her side because he is a good husband. Basically, the Grand Maester Mellos tells Viserys that he has a choice to make and that basically he has to choose to save either the baby or Emma which one he wants to live, or they're both gonna die. Grand Maester Malus is like, well, we did learn about this thing basically where like we can cut the baby out. It's a C-section, but they can't call it a C-section because Julius Caesar's not canon to the Game of Thrones universe, and it's a cesarean section. So basically they're like, well, we can cut it out. It's like very risky, but we can do it and probably save the baby, but your wife's gonna be dead. He's like, that one. He doesn't say it like that, but he's basically like, well, I really want a son, and I think it's a son. So they like cut the baby out of her body. Oh god, it's so gross. Oh, it's so gross. Oh, it's so gross. They literally hold Emma's body down, and she's like, what are you doing? And Viserys is like, I love you so much. She's like, literally, what is happening? And they cut her open forcibly without telling her what they're doing. And then as soon as she realizes what they're doing, she's like begging them not to. It's like so horrible. And Viserys feels horrible too, because basically he's like sentenced his wife to death. And well, yeah, you did. Basically, Sir Criston Cole knocks Daemon off his horse, which is like, oh my god, like Daemon's been knocking everyone else off their horse, but so has Criston. And so Criston knocks Daemon off his horse, and they actually do get into a fist fight. This is a really cool thing that the show does. When Daemon thinks he's won the fist fight with Criston Cole, the baby is pulled out of Emma. When Criston Cole asks him to yield on the ground, that's when they realize that Emma is dead. Ooh, visual storytelling is so good in this show. The show is so well written. I actually think it's more well written than most of the Game of Thrones series. Ooh, is that bad to say? But I think it's true. So Sir Criston Cole asks for Rhaenyra's favor. Ooh, that's the princess. While this is happening, Grand Maester Malos reveals that the baby is in fact a boy, and they name the baby Balon. So there's a funeral for Emma, and then also they like pan up and they're like, Emma's body, oh, also little baby body, because Balon died. It sucks the baby died. After this, the council meets and they're like, so what are we gonna do? We don't really have an heir. Ooh, Daemon is not here. He's not attending this council meeting, but he is behind the walls. He's in the walls and he's listening. Basically, everyone's like, well, there's really only two options, and that's Daemon or Rhaenyra. Both are not great. Daemon's like a hothead and Rhaenyra's a woman. Equally bad. And then Lord Corlys, icon and male wife, he's not a male wife, but he has a wife that he loves, is like, what about Rhaenys? Remember when she was heir and you all said no? And they don't really come to a strong conclusion here, because everyone's like, these are all horrible options. This sucks. Viserys can't die. Otto tells Alicent to go comfort Viserys in his chambers. She does so reluctantly, but they actually do have a lot in common, so it is kind of sweet. Prince Daemon rents out a brothel for all of the city watch. He toasts to Balon and he calls him the heir for the day. And then Otto has a bunch of spies, and one of his spies hears this and reports back to him, and Otto tells Viserys what Daemon said in the toast, calling Balon the heir for a day. Viserys gets really mad at him, obviously so, because like, why would you say that? First of all, Balon's your nephew. He's dead. It hasn't even really been like a day. Because basically Daemon's like, well, obviously I'm going to be heir because I'm up against two women. After Viserys hears this, he does confront Daemon and tells him to go back to the Vale. He's like, go back to your wife, dude. Viserys also tells Daemon that he, as in Viserys, has decided that Rhaenyra is going to be queen. Rhaenyra is his heir. Yay, Rhaenyra. We love when women succeed. After that confrontation with Daemon, he gets another little cut. And then after that, basically, Viserys goes to Rhaenyra and apologizes, saying that like he's wasted so many years with her because he's been hoping for a boy every time Emma was pregnant. And he's like, I should have just been like spending time with you because you're like my daughter, and also like not hoping that you were a boy, and also like I'm sure that sucks. Rhaenyra does like accept this apology, and Viserys acknowledges that she could be a really great queen. Basically, he's like, they must know their histories, because a lot of the times, anytime there has been wars, because the Targaryens have been fighting each other, and they have dragons, which means it's really, really bad when they fight each other. So basically, like, don't do that. We have to like be smart and civil and like level-headed, because like dragons fire hot-headed. And also that there's like this prophecy only gets passed down through each heir. It's a big secret, and basically it's called Aegon's Dream, which is a Song of Ice and Fire. Oh my god, that's what it's called. That's where the title comes from. And it's that prophecy that comes up in Game of Thrones too, and it's basically this idea that the Song of Ice and Fire, that there's going to be a big nasty evil winter coming, and that the only way to stop the evil nasty winter is if all the seven kingdoms are united underneath a Targaryen, which is the fire in the Song of Ice and Fire. He tells her that and is like, this is a big secret, shh, don't tell you, but also like, I'm telling you because you're my heir now. And then at the end of episode 1, which is where we're getting to right now, is that all the lords swear fealty to Rhaenyra. Episode 2 is The Rogue Prince. This is about 5 months after episode 1. This episode, we open on the Stepstones that it's actually not going very well and that a lot of Corliss's men are dying in the Stepstones because he is fighting there because it is his territory. Like, he has to defend it, and like he keeps sending people out and they're all being eaten by the crab feeders crabs, and it's like not good. He comes to the council and he's basically like, hey guys, like, why aren't we doing anything about this? It's actually like a really big problem. It's not just affecting my family, it's going to affect everyone because a reminder, like ports and trading, right? Like, why aren't we doing anything? They like keep throwing around ideas, and Rhaenyra's like, why don't we just use dragons? Like, do you forget that like I ride a dragon, Daemon has a dragon, like we have dragons? And everyone like looks at her and is like, girl, like, why are you talking right now? You're just a little girl. Everyone gets like annoyed, and Viserys sends her away, and they're like, go find someone to replace Daemon. Go find another commander of the City Watch. She's like, fine. Daemon basically has flown away to Dragonstone. He was not sent to Dragonstone, remember, he was sent away to the Vale. So he is in Dragonstone, and he has brought Mysaria with him to basically be like, I'm not listening to you, I'm angry, and I don't want to go fuck my wife. Thank you. Rhaenyra is bored looking at all the options because once again, like, none of these people have seen war, but guess who's there? Criston Cole. And she does in fact pick Criston Cole. Alicent is still comforting Viserys after the death of Emma, who I should take off here. She's dead. And basically they bond over history because again, she's a huge history nerd, and so is Viserys. He has a huge like model of old Valyria in his chambers that he likes to paint little miniatures. He's a huge fucking nerd, and he should not be king. Rhaenys should be queen, okay? Rhaenys, they did you wrong, girl. So Viserys tells Alicent that like he hasn't spoken to Rhaenyra much, and Alicent's like, maybe just like talk to her. And then Viserys is like, also, yes, I will listen to you and go talk to my daughter, like crazy notion, but also like don't tell her that we talk. And Alicent's like, I would never. So then Alicent and Rhaenyra are talking, and Rhaenyra's like, my dad literally hasn't like talked to me. Like, I'm so pissed, and all he wants to do is like marry me off because like he doesn't believe I'm gonna be queen, which is like true. And basically Alicent's like, maybe try talking to your dad. Maybe try talking. Like, basically Alicent's like, guys, just like talk to each other. Oh my god, you guys are stupid, talk to each other. So everyone is trying to marry Viserys off because they know that if they can offer someone to Viserys who has potential to make boys, then not only will Rhaenyra not be heir anymore, they'll have a male heir, which is like great because again, we hate women. Their family will then also be aligned with the crown and heir. So basically what Otto is doing by sending Alicent off is setting her up to be a love match for Viserys because that's very important to him. He wants to fall in love because he loved Emma, R.I.P. Lord Corlys starts being like, why don't you marry my 12-year-old daughter? He's like, Laena, she's 12. She'll have a child soon. Marry her. Also, like, Velaryons and Targaryens have always been like this because we're both from Valyria. We understand each other, you and me. So marry my daughter. She'll give you lots of kids. And also, like, I have the Navy, you have dragons, Valyria. It's like perfect. And everyone knows that like the Velaryons are a very good ally to have. Like, you don't piss them off because like no one else can do ships like they can. And so Viserys is like genuinely considering this, but also like, again, she's 12. Ooh, and Viserys is like old. That's an old man. They like go on a date too. It's like Viserys is like actually like losing a finger from the throne. It'll get worse from there. Viserys tells Otto and Grandmaster Malos that Lord Corlys has offered up Laena as a marriage proposal. Malos is kind of like, that's actually like the smartest choice is to marry a Velaryon for all the reasons that Corlys did mention, especially with the tension in the Stepstones too. They're like, well, if you marry his daughter, he'll kind of stop bringing it up. Obviously it's a problem for him, but he can't be too mad at you because you did marry his daughter. But Otto's like, no, you can't just marry for duty's sake. Ugh, I wonder why he would say that. Because if he married for duty's sake, if Viserys married for duty's sake, he would obviously just marry Laena. But I mean, Alicent's been comforting him this whole time. You gotta just like consider it for a bit. But anyway, Viserys and Laena do go on a date in like a little promenade in the garden. It's like gross or whatever. Rhaenyra does see Laena and Viserys on their little date, and Rhaenys watches them, and Rhaenyra is like to Rhaenys, doesn't this bother you that you're literally like whoring out your daughter to the king? And Rhaenys is like, but that's just kind of like how things are. She's like, yes, it bothers me, but like that's just the world we live in as women. And Rhaenyra is like, when I'm heir, I'm going to make a new order. And Rhaenys is like, sure you will, girl, because they're sure gonna put you on the throne. Alicent and Viserys are getting closer to each other. Otto breaks in and interrupts another one of Alicent and Viserys's little talks to let them know there's been an emergency, and basically that emergency is that Daemon has stolen a dragon egg and brought it back to Dragonstone to give to his apparent unborn child that Mysaria is having. So they're like, what are we gonna do? He's having a kid with not his wife, and he's at Dragonstone, and he stole a dragon egg, which is not good because Daemon already has a dragon, Caraxes. So if he had two dragons, that's a big deal. And then, another important thing to note, the egg that Daemon stole was the egg that Rhaenyra picked out for her baby brother Balon. So it's like another knife to the chest because he's like intending this to be the heir. Daemon's kind of a dick a lot of the times. It's really hard to defend him, but also he's played by Matt Smith, which is just so charismatic, and like you're like, but I love to hate you, Daemon. Alicent is helping Otto get ready to leave, and Otto notices Alicent's little fingies because she likes to chew on them, and he's basically like, you're the most comely girl in court. He's basically calling her ugly, and he's like, you're ugly and nervous, you need to get your shit together. Otto asks Alicent if she's going to sing Viserys, and she's like, if you want me to. And he's basically like, well, of course I do, you dumb bitch. And she's like, fine, I'll go see the king. And then Otto goes to Dragonstone to go meet up with Daemon. It's basically like, dude, give the egg back, like you're a fucking idiot. And Daemon's like, I'm not gonna give the egg back. I'm having a baby with this Mysaria. Mysaria's like, dude, like, what are you talking about? I'm not pregnant. Like, did you just lie to all these people? Like, why would you do that? And you know what? He did. He just lied. Because Daemon's just fucking chaotic like that. Like, he just does shit sometimes. And you're like, Daemon, there were so many better ways to go about this. Like, use your fucking brain, Daemon. Use your brain. And then basically, like, Otto and Daemon, like, get into, like, they're almost gonna break out into a fight, like a fist fight with all, like, the City Watch. Because the City Watch is loyal to Daemon, and they all went to him with Dragonstone. And Otto has, like, the Kingsguard there. And basically, they're gonna start fighting. And then Rhaenyra flies in on Syrax and is like, stop. And then talks to Daemon in High Valyrian and is like, babe, you're better than this. Babe, you're better than this. Give me the egg back. And you know what? He does. Because he does have a soft spot for Rhaenyra. Mysaria's pissed, and then her and Daemon have a little moment after that. And Mysaria's like, dude, like, literally, why the fuck would you lie like that? Like, that is so fucking embarrassing. She's like, I'm not someone to be whored out. I should be respected, and I thought you genuinely liked me, and I thought you were going to keep me safe. Most importantly, I thought you were going to keep me safe. And Daemon's like, keep you safe? Keep you safe from what, girl? And she's like, literally, like, do you understand what it means to be a woman at all? Mysaria's like, I don't want kids. I don't want to do that. And Daemon's kind of like, I mean, I don't either. I hate kids. Mysaria's like, I don't want kids for the same reason you don't want kids. You don't want kids because you're an asshole. I don't want kids for a lot of, like, very particular women being literally, like, physically harmed reasons. Viserys really does confide a lot in Lionel Strong. Finally, Strong, my favorite house. Lionel Strong on the council, basically Viserys talks to him and is like, dude, like, who should I marry? Like, what is the best idea? He's like talking about Laena Velaryon and is like, I don't know what to do. And Lionel's like, basically, I mean, like, objectively, Laena is the best option here for many reasons. As they're about to continue, Rhaenyra interrupts their meeting because she comes back from Dragonstone, and Viserys is like, why did you go there? Don't do that, girl. Like, you're my heir. Like, if you die, I literally have no one, and then Daemon will be heir, which I don't want. And Rhaenyra's like, I went because your hand to the king is a fucking idiot and was trying to calm Daemon down when she doesn't know what to do. Obviously, they fucking hate each other. She's like, I'm the only reason why no one died there today. And Viserys is like, oh, that's kind of true, but also I'm mad at you. Viserys, like, looks at Rhaenyra and he gets, like, a little soft, and he's basically like, you look just like Emma. I miss your mom so much. And then they start thinking about, like, the fact that Viserys is going to get married, and Rhaenyra tells him that she understands. Like, Rhaenyra's like, dude, I understand you have to get married. Like, you're the king. Obviously, you're going to get married. And I do think that Rhaenyra genuinely does understand this, because Rhaenyra is not dumb. She's very, very smart. She's just, like, in a very unfortunate position most of the time, but she also does come from a place with privilege. She's a very nuanced character, and we love her for it. We love Rhaenyra, okay? I am Rhaenyra stan. The King's Council meets, and basically Viserys is like, I know who I'm gonna marry. Guess who I'm gonna marry? Guess who I'm gonna marry? It's Alicent. And everyone's like, what? Lord Corlys is like, unacceptable. Rhaenyra's like, my best friend and my lover. And Otto's like, I did this. Alicent is also a little nervous. It's obviously she doesn't really want to do this, but her and Viserys genuinely do have, like, a relationship but it is only because Otto told her to go comfort him. So it's a little complicated because of that, but like it's not like a horrible match. It's just like unfortunate because you can tell that there would be a better match for Alicent. I don't think there would be a better match for Viserys. Alicent could have done better. Viserys could not have done better. Alicent for sure could have, and that's the sad part about it. I will say in like the first 5 episodes of it, Alicent is a much more sympathetic character than Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is kind of seen as like privileged, obviously because she's the princess and she kind of does whatever she wants. She's a little bit more blunt when she speaks to people and she kind of just says what she wants. And Alicent, on the other hand, is like the sweet, shy little girl who's very nervous and is just trying to do what girls do in court, which is what they have to do, you know? So she's a much more sympathetic character up front here until we get to the later half of the season, which I think is a good choice because no offense, Alicent, but you are a bit of a monster. No offense. Later on. Anyway, after that, Corlys meets with Daemon and is basically like, listen, like we both have brothers. Remember Vaemon, who I mentioned at the beginning? Now he's kind of becoming important. He doesn't show up until later, but they mention him, so I figured I'd put him on here now. Daemon and Corlys are meeting. Basically, Corlys is like, listen, we're both brothers here. We both kind of have something to prove. Team up with me. Let's go fight the crab feeder and the stepstones, and then Viserys will have to forgive you. That's end of episode 2. Episode 3 is second of his name. So basically the stepstones with the crab feeder. It's up in flames. Oh my god. Valyrian soldiers are being killed by the crab feeder. It is not good. Daemon is on there with Craxes. He's now in the stepstones and he is fighting as well. And they're burning fire because it's a dragon. And then basically the crab feeder and his people go hide out in the caves. This becomes a huge issue because they can't go into the caves because they're all in the caves. And if they go into the caves, then they're gonna get killed in the caves. We have another time jump. Alicent and Viserys are officially married. Aw, kiss. And they have a son named Aegon, who I will not put on the board yet. Like, he's an important character, but he's just a plot point now. He's not an actual, like, part of the plot. He's just a plot point, if that makes sense. So he's not on the board yet. He will be later. Now everyone's like, so who's gonna be heir? Because now you have a son. We're assuming that you're gonna make him heir, but technically we all did swear fealty to Rhaenyra. Alicent is also currently pregnant with another kid. Alicent finds Rhaenyra under the weirwood tree this time, you know, like their usual meeting place, but she's there with the bard. And the bard is like playing the same song over and over again, and Rhaenyra is reading the history. Viserys and the royal family are supposed to all go to celebrate Aegon's second name day, and Rhaenyra's like, I'm not going. So she hid out in the weirwood tree, and Alicent's like, please come. Like, I know this is like a really unfortunate situation for everyone, but please just come and like be a family. It would make your dad really happy. At the royal hunt, we finally meet Larys Strong, this creepy ass motherfucker. He's there and he's like, I can't join the hunt. So he gossips with all the lady girlies. So he's gossiping with Alicent, the girls. Rhaenyra tries to gossip, but they're all like, oh, you're a woman? Ooh, I don't think you're gonna be heir. Who are you marrying yet? And Rhaenyra's like, fuck this, I don't care. And also a bunch of lords at the royal hunt are approaching Rhaenyra and are kind of like trying to get in her pants. One of whom is Jason Lannister, who is just a funny, silly little misogynistic little guy. He's not little at all. He's a huge, horrible asshole, but you know what I mean. And basically Rhaenyra goes up to Viserys and is like, dude, stop whoring me out. And Viserys is like, it's literally my job to, especially now that I have a son. You have to marry someone important because that's the only way they're going to accept you as queen. And she's like, oh, you suck. So they get into a huge fight in front of everyone. Everyone's like, and basically Rhaenyra storms out. Viserys is like, really fucked up and starts drinking a lot because it's like, oh, I just fought with my daughter. So Rhaenyra flees and rides off, and Kristen Cole follows her. Jason Lannister gives Viserys a spear for Aegon's second name day. I'm giving you this really nice spear. Reminder, I'm rich as fuck because I'm a Lannister. Please, can I marry your daughter? And Viserys is kind of like, I mean, she can decide, but thank you for the spear. Oh, also important to note that Jason is like, I would make a really good option for your daughter also because, I mean, now that she's not going to be your heir anymore, I mean, I'm a really good catch. And Viserys is like, dude, what the fuck? She's still my heir. Like, why would you say that? And he's kind of like, well, you have a son now. And then he's like, well, obviously now you're not going to marry my daughter. And Jason realizes that he fucked up. Like, you shouldn't have said that. But also he's still going to try because he's a Lannister. Blech. Otto says this crazy thing where he's like, why don't you just betroth Aegon and Rhaenyra? And like, honestly, in hindsight, that probably is the smartest option. But Viserys is like, no. But Otto, like, straight up, you kind of ate with that that one. I know they're brother and sister, but they are half, so it's not entirely gross. But this does piss Viserys off, and he does continue to drink. Lionel Strong tries to approach Viserys about his opinion, and Viserys is like, don't tell me, Lionel, you want Rhaenyra to marry your son Harwin. And Lionel's like, literally, no, I don't think that at all. Because Lionel's a good guy, and he's genuinely a good person with good thoughts, which, you know, means he's gonna die. Lionel thinks it's a good idea to actually betroth Rhaenyra to Laenor, who is Corlys and Rhaenys' son, because he's like, I think you really did hurt Corlys's feelings when you married Alicent instead of Laena. And so by betrothing Laenor to Rhaenyra, you'll kind of almost remedy that. And also then we can kind of start to deal with the issue in the Stepstones, because Lionel is smart. He knows that that's going to have to pop up soon. But also he notes that, hey, also remember the Stepstones that we just kind of mentioned? Yeah, Laenor would have to survive that because he is currently fighting there. So while it is a good idea, remember how you ignored the Stepstones? Yeah, that's kind of an issue now because your smartest option for Rhaenyra might die. Kristen and Rhaenyra are in the woods. Like, can we please go back to camp? And Rhaenyra's like pissed, and she's basically like ranting about the fact that she's getting like sold off to all these lords and that like no one believes in her because she's a woman. So basically Rhaenyra asks Kristen if he thinks that when she ascends the throne, if everyone will like believe in her as queen and like swear fealty for her. And Kristen's like, they'll have to. And she liked that answer. They're sitting around a fire hanging out in the woods, and they hear this noise in the distance, and a fucking boar comes out of nowhere and like literally like fucking flings Sir Kristen Cole into the air. Rhaenyra takes out this knife and fucking stabs the shit out of the boar, and like something has awakened in her. And basically they get the boar ready and they start taking it back to camp. Alicent checks on Viserys because Viserys is still very drunk. He tells Alicent that he had this dream of a young male heir of his wearing the Conqueror's crown, which is Aegon the Conqueror, who flew over from Essos, that conquered all of Westeros. Back when Emma was still alive, he had this dream, which is why he always like really hoped for a boy, because he thought he was a dreamer and had these prophecies. Basically, he thought he was having prophecies that he would have a male son. And now that it's finally happened, Viserys is feeling very conflicted because, you know, he just like made up with Rhaenyra and apologized to her for basically like hoping for a boy, and now he's finally has that boy, and he's like feeling very conflicted about it, so he's drinking his worries. Viserys basically tells Alicent that like his obsession with this prophecy is what killed Emma. He seems to be regretting naming Rhaenyra heir to the throne for many reasons, but I think a lot of it is also just like recency bias and the fact that Rhaenyra has been really getting on his nerves lately. The next morning, they find a stag in the woods. I didn't mention this before because sometimes you just gotta keep moving on. Basically, the royal hunt, they thought they saw a white stag, or a white hart, they call it, which is like this symbol or this legend of like good prosperity, especially when it comes to like the fact that this is a hunt for Aegon's second name day. So everyone's like, if we find and kill the white hart that they thought they saw, this would mean that Aegon is meant to be a very good and prosperous king. So after that whole drunken mess and the party happens, they do find a stag in the woods. It's not the white hart, but they're like, it is a big stag. So Viserys does take the spear that Jason Lannister gave him and killed the hart. It does take 2 stabs because Viserys, again, this is supposed to show that he's not like a strong guy. He like stabs it and it's like wailing in pain. And someone, I can't remember who, comes up to him and is like, try it again, my lord, just a little to the left. And he does, kills the hart. But it's like, again, you're kind of like supposed to see Viserys as not like this strong warrior, but kind of just like this guy that just happened to fall into this. While that's happening, Rhaenyra and Kristen are coming back from their little night in the woods where they killed the boar, and they have the boar on like a cart and they're hauling it back to camp. And while they're like sitting on the edge of like this beautiful landscape, what comes up behind them but a white hart, the white hart that everyone else thought they were going to hunt and kill in honor of Aegon. Rhaenyra sees it because it comes up behind her, and Kristen gets out his sword to kill it, and Rhaenyra's like, don't. She lets the white hart go. Again, a symbol that Rhaenyra is going to be a good ruler, and she doesn't kill it, showing that she has kindness and restraint. And then after that, they do make it back to camp, and Rhaenyra's like hot and covered in blood, and they're like, coming in, and they have the boar, and like people are impressed, specifically Harwin Strong. He's like, yeah, girl, get it, girl, get it, girl, get it. And Jason Lannister is like, ew, you could never handle her. You couldn't handle a baddie like Rhaenyra, Jason. You could never. That's why Harwin's the best, because he sees Rhaenyra as this beautiful, strong girly. Back at the castle, Otto talks to Alicent in her chambers, and Otto is basically like, Alicent, you have to make sure that Aegon is heir. For many reasons, but most importantly, for Rhaenyra ascends to the throne, there will be war because no one can handle a woman. No one can handle a woman like her on the throne. And Alicent's like, fine, but I mean, like, Rhaenyra's my friend, and also she is heir. Alicent is still pretty set on Rhaenyra being heir. She does not think that Aegon should be heir at this point. And Otto's like, no girl, no girl, you're gonna change your mind. Alicent does visit Viserys in his chamber, and Viserys is very hungover because he did drink a lot. And Alicent suggests that a good idea to help deal with Rhaenyra is to give her the illusion of choice. Alicent knows her girly girl, she does, because they're in love. Alicent's like, you got to make her feel like she has a choice in the marriage. And Viserys hears this and he agrees. They're having a tough time in the Stepstones. Yeah, he's like, brother, help. Brother, help. Alicent has a wise girl moment here, and she's like, you got to make a choice here. She's like, yes, it's been a very long time. She's like, but is it better for the kingdom if you ignore the Stepstones or if you go help? Sounds like it's better if you go help because it's actually the right thing to do. Not only is it just the right thing to do because people in your kingdom are dying, but also like, you do need that port. So Viserys does go send help to the Stepstones. Thank God he does something smart. And Rhaenyra does confront Viserys about trying to replace her with Aegon. Viserys basically tells her, like, hey, if you get married, it's going to help your claim, okay? I'm not trying to whore you out. It's just no one's going to accept you as heir just as you are, unfortunately, because that's just the truth of it. And he says that she has to find a match that'll suit her, because again, he married for love with Emma, rest in peace. So he does want love for Rhaenyra, but he's also trying to, again, give her that illusion of choice. So Rhaenyra does kind of seem content with this. It seems like a good deal. Viserys does admit to her that he did waver on his commitment to her being heir once, which we can assume was when he was drunk at the party talking to Alicent, but he says that he does not regret that at this moment. He said that was one time. I swear I'm committed to you as my heir. And Rhaenyra hears this as well. In the Stepstones, Corlys, Aemond, and Laenor are all trying to devise a strategy for dealing with the crab feeder. Laenor suggests that they use Daemon as bait to lure out the crab feeder, and everyone's like, that's a fucking crazy idea, dude. Like, I don't think that's gonna work. And Laenor's like, literally nothing else we've tried has worked so far. Vaemond specifically hates this idea. He thinks it's stupid. But then Daemon does come back to the war table after that whole little interaction happens. After Daemon joins the war table, at that time, there's a letter from Viserys being like, hey guys, I'm sending help. Don't you feel so lucky? This kind of pisses Daemon off, and everyone's a little relieved, obviously, because they're like, we wanted help and we finally got it. But also everyone's like, dude, it's been like 3 fucking years. Where have you been? We're literally fighting for our fucking lives here. And now you just want to help? So everyone's also like, are there alternative motives? And spoiler alert, there always is. Once this message is delivered, Daemon beats up the messenger. You know how they're like, don't shoot the messenger. He didn't shoot the messenger. He just beat the shit out of it. And everyone's like, dude, Daemon, stop it, Daemon. They literally have to like pull him off of him because Daemon is just a freak like that. So basically we get a voiceover from Viserys saying that he's sending 10 ships and 2,000 men to the Stepstones, and he apologizes for taking so long to offer help. And then we see Daemon alone on the battlefield with a white flag. He's waving it. This lures the crab feeder out. At this point, we, the audience, don't know that they've agreed to this plan to set Daemon as bait. So we're just seeing this, and we're seeing Daemon surrender. That's not true, babes. The crab feeder comes out, and he takes his men out because he does think that they're surrendering. But guess what? They're not. War happens, and Laenor's plan worked. The crab feeder does go back into the caves, but Daemon follows him, and then Daemon does kill him in the caves. We don't get to see him kill him in the caves, but Daemon comes out of the cave with like his torso. So the crab feeder is dead. Yeah, and that's the end of episode 3. So now we're on to episode 4, which is called King of the Narrow Sea. This episode is about Daemon. Spoiler alert. A lot about Daemon, at least. So we got a close-up shot of young Rhaenyra wearing the necklace that Daemon gave her. She's wearing this necklace that Daemon got her while she's looking at marriage candidates. This is foreshadowing the fact that maybe they should betroth Daemon and Rhaenyra, or maybe they have a little something going on. Like, she's on this tour to find someone to marry, and a fight breaks out. Rhaenyra gets fed up. She's like, I can't marry any of these people, and she walks out, and she is sailing home. And while she's sailing home, Caraxes, who is, again, Daemon's dragon, flies over her boat. And basically, you know, we all assume that like Daemon is also returning to King's Landing. But why? No one knows why. Daemon is back in King's Landing, and this is the episode where we get short-haired Daemon. Long live short-haired Daemon. This wig, I'm so sorry, Queen. You did do your service, but you deserve so much more. Daemon comes, and he doesn't come. So Daemon is wearing this crown made of bones, and he walks up to the throne room where Viserys is, surprise, on the throne. And Daemon takes out a sword, he drops it at Viserys' feet, and he's like, add it to the chair. And Viserys asks why Daemon's wearing a crown. And Daemon's basically like, yeah, they named me King of the Narrow Sea after we won the battle in the Stepstones. Like, I don't really know. Like, it's just like casual like that. So everyone's kind of like expecting Daemon to be like, yeah, I'm King of the Narrow Sea, and now I'm going to be king of the Seven Kingdoms, so fuck you. But he doesn't do that. Basically, he's like, I swear fealty to you, my King Viserys. Which is, surprise, we get a moment of humility from Daemon. He can play the game if he wanted to. If he wanted to, he would swear fealty to the king, is all I have to say about that. Daemon also tells him, oh yeah, also like we killed the crab feeder, if that wasn't clear. And they then hug because they love each other. They're brothers. Oh my gosh, they're brothers. So they have a celebration, and Viserys is pissed at Rhaenyra. He's pissed at her. He won't talk to her. Tensions are high. He organized this whole tour for her and went out of his way to get like all these nice lords, and she kind of just blew it off because she like had a bad interaction at one place. And so he's pissed because he put a lot of work into it, and he's trying to be a good dad and like give her choice, but she's not making it easy. Alicent and Rhaenyra have a little bonding moment, and they bond about the fact that they're both women in society. Rhaenyra and Daemon also have a moment in Surprise, the Gods Would. Oh my god. And they talk about maturing and marriage. Daemon says this thing because they're talking about his wife, and Rhaenyra's like, why won't you hang out with your wife? Like, why doesn't she have a child? And Daemon says, I doubt a child could grow in such harsh environs. And like, they're really setting up like this idea that like Lady Rhea is like an ugly bitch, and she's not. Basically, Lord Corlys is taking up power in the Stepstones, and is not necessarily like giving it back to the king. He's not giving it back to the king, but he's also not giving it back to the king. And everyone thinks it's because Viserys passed up Laena. Corlys is pissed because that's like a huge slight. Otto does hear that Corlys is trying to marry Laena off to some lords in Braavos. Basically, Otto's like, hey, I know you want Rhaenyra to marry for love, right? But with this certain situation happening in the Stepstones, you might have to make a political marriage arrangement here. Rhaenyra then returns to her chambers, and she finds a mysterious little bag packed for her, and it's a little cute little boy costume. She dresses up, turns out it's from Daemon. So her and Daemon go out on the town, and they see like a little play, which is making fun of them. It's like a little mummers farce, and they're dressed up as Daemon, Rhaenyra, and Alicent and Aegon, and Viserys, obviously. But like, what's important to note that happens in the mummers farce is, one, everyone's like, Daemon's a sore little crybaby, and that doesn't really bother Daemon. He doesn't seem to bother with people's opinions like that. Rhaenyra is being called the realm's delight because she's like pretty, but everyone assumes she's like a whore, which at this point she hasn't, to our knowledge, had sex with anyone yet. So it's kind of like interesting that she's being framed that way now. She's just being sexualized as a child, which is like, you know, I guess common for women. And then also little baby Aegon. Basically, everyone's like, we don't like Rhaenyra because she's a woman, and we don't like Daemon because he's a crybaby. We want Aegon. We want Aegon. And Rhaenyra's like, dude, like, what the fuck? You all would rather have a little baby over me just because I'm a woman? And Daemon's like, yeah, they would. And then they both go to a brothel together, and then they low-key start hooking up. But Daemon can't keep it up, and he gets mad and he walks away. And Rhaenyra's like, man, I'm horny now. What am I going to do? So she returns to the Red Keep, and she basically like lures Sir Criston in. Yes, and they have sex. And they have sex. Yes, they do. One thing I also love about the House of the Dragon sex scene, specifically with Rhaenyra, is that they do focus on women and women's pleasure. Oh, that reminds me. Daemon tells Rhaenyra that sex can be about women's pleasure. Wow. bold. This actually makes a huge imprint on Rhaenyra. And she and Kristen have a good time. It's very sweet. Oh, I forgot. Also, while all that is happening, Alicent and Viserys are having sex. But it's very clear Alicent is not having a good time. Because basically, like, Viserys summons her from her chambers. It's, like, really late. And, like, a maid comes into Alicent's chambers and is like, the king summons you. And she's like, it's so late. But she does anyway, because that's her duty. So it's like, again, this juxtaposition between these two sequences happening, that Rhaenyra is privileged and is able to live this life of freedom because she comes from privilege, and she doesn't abide necessarily by the rules that society has set forth for women. Meanwhile, Alicent does, and doing so has brought her great displeasure, whereas Rhaenyra is currently learning about women's pleasure. So we're having this sort of juxtaposition. It's really, really, really wonderful. A messenger tells Otto, one of his little spies, tells Otto that they saw Rhaenyra and Daemon out at the brothel and like having a good old night on the town. Oh my god, I forgot. Rhaenyra runs into Sir Harwin on the street that night, and they have a little moment, and he basically like catches her, and he could turn her in because he's like, princess, but he lets her go. So basically a messenger who is not Harwin, I know I just brought that up, but not Harwin, a little boy messenger comes up to Otto and is like, hey, guess what I found out? I saw with my little eye. These two fucks getting it on in a brothel. Otto's like, oh, this is horrible. So he goes to tell Viserys. Daemon then wakes up with Mysaria. Remember her? Yes, taking care of him. It's clear that Mysaria is the one that sent the messenger to Otto. That's right. She ratted him out because she is pissed at him because he was being a dick to her, and he deserved it. He's being a dick. Daemon, you're a dick. Alicent, while these two are talking in their chambers, Alicent is spying, because she's starting to learn how to play the game. She's starting to learn. She overhears Otto tell Viserys that Rhaenyra was seen with Daemon in a brothel and that they were having relations. And Viserys is like, impossible, you're lying. My daughter would never. And Otto's like, dude, like, I'm telling you, like, I know it seems like shady that I would say it, but I swear to God, like, someone told me. And basically Viserys is like, you're only telling me this because you want to defame Rhaenyra because she's heir. You want Aegon to be heir, so you're telling me about Rhaenyra being a whore because you want me to disown her as heir and make Aegon heir to further the Hightower name, which is true. He's not doing that. He is trying to be the hand and be like, hey, like, dude, like, this happened and you might want to get a handle on the situation. So it's like a kind of like a double-edged sword in that way. There's some truth to all the things being said. Kristen brings a message to Rhaenyra from Alicent, and Kristen like enters the room. Rhaenyra's like, hey, boy toy. And Kristen's like, not a good time. We're in trouble. He's like, I have a message from Alicent and she wants me to come get you to talk to you. So Kristen thinks that he's in trouble. He's like, I'm going to get fired or worse, killed. And Rhaenyra's like, oh no, they found out. But Rhaenyra had a really big night, remember? Like she did a little bit of everything. Guess where these two meet up? The Godswood. That's right. Alicent asks Rhaenyra about what happened last night, citing that she overheard Otto talking to Viserys about it. So Alicent was basically like, girl, like, what's up? And Rhaenyra's like, it did not happen. And Rhaenyra's like, okay, fine. So like me and Daemon did hang out, but we just went to a tavern and like got drunk. Like nothing happened. Alicent's like, but they saw you in a brothel. And Rhaenyra's like, yeah, but I didn't do anything. I just watched. And like literally Rhaenyra swears upon her dead mother that this isn't true. Like Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra, you are lying, girl. Don't swear upon your dead mother like that. Like, don't do that. That's crazy. Rhaenyra was crazy for that. But Alicent does believe her. She's like, I mean, she wouldn't swear upon her dead mother. Guess what, Mimi? She did.
Well, guess what, Mimi? We did.
Alicent and Viserys meet up to talk about, like, what they each heard. And Alicent tells Viserys to trust Rhaenyra's word. Rhaenyra is then called into Viserys' room, and Viserys shows her Aegon the Conqueror's dagger from the prophecy. Once again, we're talking about the Song of Ice and Fire, and he is stressing to her about how important it is. He's like, this is like not a joke, girl. Like, don't treat things like a joke. Like, this is so serious. This is like life or death here. He's doing this because he's like, stop fucking around. Stop being a fucking idiot. Like, I heard what happened. I'm gonna choose to believe you, but also I am wedding you to Laenor. I mean, like, it's not a horrible match, and like she acknowledges this. Like, it could be a lot worse, but it's not what she chose. And then Rhaenyra tells him, she's basically like, dude, I don't know what you heard, but if Otto told you it, like, he's a bitch and he hates me, and so like obviously he's plotting against you. And basically she's like, I'm gonna do my duty to the realm, but you need to do yours. Viserys actually listens to Rhaenyra, and he's like, you know what, Rhaenyra, you make a fair point. Otto's dad was Hand to the King, and basically Viserys accuses Otto of killing his own father to become Hand to the King. And Otto's like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Viserys also accuses Otto of sending Alicent to him, and he's like, I didn't see it before, but like now looking at everything that's happened and the way you've been speaking to me lately, specifically about Rhaenyra and about Aegon, like it's become clear to me that you sent Alicent to me to comfort me in order for me to like her and choose her as a bride. And Otto can't really deny this, but he's also like, I didn't lie to you about your daughter, and I am trying to genuinely help you. And he is, but also he's a dick. So, like, people can be two things at once, apparently. Viserys demotes Otto, and Otto is sent back to Old Town, which is where the Hightowers live. And he is no longer Hand to the King. Clap if you cared. Clap if you care. And then after that, Rhaenyra is given a Plan B potion from the Grand Maester on behalf of the king. And Rhaenyra is like, what is this? Like, why are you giving me tea? I didn't ask for tea. And they're like, girl, like, it's to get rid of any unwanted consequences. Oof. Can I have some of that? Now we're on to episode 5. We're halfway there. Lady Rhea is Daemon's wife. She's in the Vale. She's riding out. She's a hunter. She's a very good hunter. And she's riding out to go hunting, and she finds a hooded man. The hooded man walks up to her. Oh my God, it's Daemon. Daemon loves a hood. He approaches her, and she kind of understands what's happening. She's like, oh my God, this guy's gonna kill me. He trips her horse, and the horse falls on her, paralyzing her. And then Daemon starts to walk away, and Lady Rhea's like, you're a coward. I knew you couldn't finish. Wink. And then Daemon takes a big rock, and that's all we see. So we don't see him bash her head in, but we can assume. Next, we see Viserys on a boat. He is seasick, and it's with Rhaenyra and Sir Criston tagging along, and they're all going to Driftmark, which is where the Velaryons live. Remember them. Otto is leaving King's Landing. Remember, he's no longer Hand to the King. Alicent says goodbye to him. It's really heartbreaking. Otto blames Alicent for this happening because she chose Rhaenyra over her family by still having loyalty and feelings for her. Otto tells her, like, hey, Viserys is gonna die soon, and then Rhaenyra will become queen, and she's gonna kill your kids. Do you want her to kill your kids? Because she's gonna kill your kids, because if she doesn't, then everyone is going to fight about succession. Alicent obviously doesn't want her kids to be killed, but she's also loves Rhaenyra in more ways than one. So, like, what's a girl to do? Alicent starts chewing on her fingers because she gets nervous, and then Otto rides off. At Driftmark, Laena and Laenor do greet Rhaenyra, Viserys, Criston, and, the whole party. Oh, yeah, that's right. Lionel Strong is now Hand to the King. Larys approaches Alicent in the Godswood, and he offers himself up as her ally. And Larys notes to her that he saw that Grandmaster Malos made a very particular tea for Rhaenyra. So he tells Alicent this, and Alicent's like, oh my God, Rhaenyra lied to me. She did have sex. And she's very clearly upset about this, and she walks away. Corlys, Viserys, and Lionel all have a little meeting. Corlys does bend the knee to Viserys. Corlys actually tells Viserys that Lady Rhea died in a hunting accident. So at this point, no one thinks that Daemon actually did kill her, but everyone's like, it is a little suspicious, right? Then Viserys proposes a betrothal between Rhaenyra and Laenor, but before they accept this proposal, Corlys and Rhaenys want to make sure that if they accept this proposal, Corlys and Rhaenys want to ensure that Rhaenyra is heir to the throne, which means that Laenor would be king consort. And Viserys is like, yes, Rhaenyra is heir. And Corlys is like, okay, great. So if they have kids, will they have Velaryon as their last name since their dad is a Velaryon, or will they have Targaryen as their last name since she's the queen? And Viserys is basically like, so yes, they will have Velaryon last names, but when they ascend to the throne, they will take the last name Targaryen. Easy way to think of it. As like Aegon the Conqueror, Aegon, first of his name, Targaryen. Basically, they would tack Targaryen onto that, but on documents, they would be Valarians, and all the ones who wouldn't ascend to the throne would still be Valarians too. Does that make sense? This satisfies Corlys, and he's like, fine, okay. Lionel seems a little hesitant about this matchup, but again, this was also something that he proposed. Rhaenyra and Laenor have a little meeting, and basically Rhaenyra's like, you know, out of everyone to be a political match with, like, you're not the worst. They kind of talk around the idea that Laenor is gay, so basically Rhaenyra's like, gay? And Laenor's like, gay. And she's like, dude, I'm fine with it. Like, really, she's like, you know, like, I like goose and some people like duck, but I don't mind if people like duck and I like goose. You know, we just like different things and that's okay with me. Rhaenyra is an ally and that's why we love her, okay? She said gay rights. So basically they come up with a plan that like, oh, we're gonna get married. We can both do our own thing, right? And they're both like, yeah, this is gonna work. This is gonna be okay. Rhaenys and Corlys kind of like debrief their meeting with Viserys. Rhaenys and Corlys both know that Laenor is gay, and they're both like, why are we setting poor Rhaenyra up for failure? Well, Rhaenys is like, we know he's gay, and Corlys is like, well, maybe he'll change his mind. And Rhaenys is like, dude, like, he's gay, okay? Just accept the fact that your son is gay. And like, they're not like saying it in a way where it's like bad, like, oh my god, homophobic. They're kind of like, it's bad that he's gay because it could get him killed. Not in a way where it's like, it's bad because he's gay, period. It's bad he's gay because he can get killed because he's gay. Basically, they're like concerned for him. And they're concerned for Rhaenyra too, because they do love her in a very complicated way. Because that's like family, right? Like that's Rhaenys is her aunt. Rhaenys also makes it a point that if Laenor is betrothed to Rhaenyra, if she ascends the throne, or with the question with succession in general between Aegon and Rhaenyra, they are putting Laenor at risk. Corlys is like, girl, it's fine. They have dragons. We have the navy. No one's gonna fight us. Laenor and his lover at the time, Joffrey, who I don't have on here again because he dies anyway. Sorry, he dies. Laenor and his wifey kiss. Laenor tells Joffrey, he's like, listen, Link, I'm getting married to Rhaenyra, but we have a deal. So you and I can still kind of hook up. Joffrey's like, hey, you know, like, this isn't bad. Like, out of everything, like, we obviously couldn't get married. So this is kind of like the next best thing, right? Like, you marry someone who's okay with it and I get to be your sworn protector, which basically means like, I will have sex. We'll have sex. They're sailing back to King's Landing, and Kristen and Rhaenyra have a lovely little moment on the boat where basically Kristen's like, I love you, run away with me, forget everything you are and everything you've ever wanted. And Rhaenyra's like, I literally know, like, you're great, I love you, I'm not gonna give up being queen for you, sorry, you're not worth it. She's like, but I do have this great deal going on with my gay husband where like he can have sex with boys and I can do whatever I want, so we can still hang out. He's like, so you want me to be your whore? And basically Rhaenyra's like, yeah, dude, like, what? Like, what's wrong with it? Be my whore. So they all return back from Driftmark, and Viserys is getting sick. Not like in a sick, like he's sick. Alicent is wearing green. She's not wearing red and black, the Targaryen colors, which, you know, when you're married, forget your old family, your new family is whoever your husband's is. So she was supposed to be wearing red and black because she's a Targaryen now. She's wearing green, which is the color of the High Towers. Alicent summons Sir Criston to her chambers. Alicent's mates are kind of like, you're summoning a really sexy knight to your chambers? That's interesting. What's happening here? So basically, Alicent asks Criston if Rhaenyra lapsed on her morals. And Alicent's like being really vague here because she hasn't like completely found her voice yet. She's still trying to find it. So basically, as she's asking him, she's not being super specific. She's like, did Rhaenyra like do something last night? Like lapse on her morals and like broke consequences? Kristen's like, yeah, we fucked. And Alicent was not asking that. Alicent was trying to ask in a roundabout way if Rhaenyra and Daemon had sex, but Criston saw it as an accusation of him and Rhaenyra having sex. So he's like, yeah, we fucked. I'm so sorry. Like, you should kill me. And Alicent's like, no, but oh my god, what? Because she was not expecting that at all. But Alicent ends up thanking him. She's like, thank you for being honest with me. I don't kill yourself, don't die. She dismisses him and he leaves silently, so they don't really like have another word, but they like have a look of understanding with each other. We're not exactly sure what that understanding is yet, but we can see that there's an alliance starting to be formed here. At this point in the season, almost every episode, you're like, is this the episode where Viserys dies? Not yet. Viserys asks Lionel if he's going to be remembered as a good king, because Viserys is like, I literally haven't done anything during my entire reign. Lionel's like, that's not like necessarily a bad thing. Like, he's like, I know a lot of people want to be remembered as these really brave war heroes. He's like, but it's not a bad thing that there hasn't been a war. Like, that's not something to be sad about. Like, it's okay to just be okay. And Viserys isn't like super comforted by this, but he does appreciate, again, Lionel's honesty. And it's not even that Viserys is disappointed at Lionel. Viserys is mostly disappointed in himself because, you know, he knows that he was never gonna be a good king. But in his like heart of hearts, he wanted to be a good king. He wasn't built for it, and that's okay. The Velaryons arrive at King's Landing because they're gonna have a little wedding. The wedding happens in this episode too. All the great houses are there, and no one knows where Alicent is though. Like they can't find the queen because it's clear Alicent is upset not only because Otto was sent away. He was sent away on the idea that Rhaenyra was telling the truth, but Rhaenyra lied, and not only did she lie, she did have sex. So they're like in the Great Hall and the celebrations are happening. No one knows where the queen is. They just assume she's getting ready because she's a woman and she's the queen, so it's going to take a while to look beautiful. Daemon walks in and everyone's like, oh, why is he here? Shouldn't he be mourning his wife? Also, did he kill his wife? They add a chair to the royal table when Daemon shows up, so it's kind of assumed that they weren't planning for him to be there. That's what that means. If you didn't pick up on that. Some people just like, you know, pick up on symbolism like that. I'm not saying who, but like I did. So Viserys starts to say a speech about the royal celebrations, and who walks in but Alicent. She is wearing green. And we get this moment between Harwin and Larys, where basically they talk about the fact that when Old Town, which is where the High Towers live, call their banners to war, the High Tower glows green. Alicent is having her own personal little protest. She's basically saying that the High Towers are at war in the Red Keep. And this throws Viserys off. Eventually he does, you know, get back on track once Alicent like parades down the aisle in this green dress and everyone's like, oh my God. And he's like, where was I? And Lionel's like, the celebrations, sir. The marriage, remember that? And they do eventually have the celebrations, but there's a lot of tension happening. Rhaenyra and Laenor dance for everyone, and once they are finished, Alicent excuses herself to go talk to the other High Towers that are at the celebrations, because remember, they are a very important house, even before Otto was Hand of the King. Alicent goes and talks to her uncle who is there. Basically, Alicent's uncle is like, just so you know, we're all behind you. Everyone is dancing and eating. Sir Gerald Royce, who is Lady Rhea's cousin, goes up to Daemon. Basically, is like, you killed Rhea. And Daemon's like, dude, it was a tragic accident, but I am gonna have to talk to you about my inheritance because since I never had any kids, whatever a lady dies, her inheritance obviously goes to her husband. So Daemon's like, I will stop by the Vale. I will. To get what is rightfully mine, my dead wife's land. After that little argument where Daemon does kind of win that argument, he asks Laena to dance. Will they get married? Who knows? Joffrey, Laenor's lover, goes up to Joffrey and he's like, I think I figured out who Rhaenyra's like little fuck buddy's gonna be. And Laenor's like, who? And Joffrey's like, listen, like that night, Sir Criston has been making faces at her all night. Like, it's obvious. And Laenor's like, oh, okay. And they're both like, he's hot. Joffrey says that Sir Criston Cole looks cunt struck. I'm stealing that. I wrote that down. And basically Joffrey tells Laenor, he's like, I'm gonna go make an ally of Sir Criston Cole because we're in the same boat. We're fuck buddies, kind of, in a way. Tunnel buddies, maybe? Kind of. Again, this is all happening during the feasting and the dancing and the celebration. Joffrey does go up to Criston to try and make an alliance, but Criston's like, dude, first of all, how do you know? Second of all, how dare you? Third of all, you're gay? Homophobe. Harwin and Rhaenyra dance with each other, and as they're dancing with each other, Daemon cuts in instead. More foreshadowing. And when Daemon goes to dance with Rhaenyra, Viserys is pissed because he does not want them with each other because he knows that they kind of did something. He doesn't want Daemon to ruin Rhaenyra, basically. And Daemon and her talk once again in High Valyrian because no one else can understand them, and so they can have this loud ass conversation in Valyrian in front of everyone, and no one can get mad even though they're talking about crazy ass things in the middle of this fucking royal celebration. Daemon's like, this match is gonna bore you and you're gonna hate it. And Rhaenyra's like, then just marry me instead. Rhaenyra's like, so pick me. Choose me. And then before anything else can happen, there's like a huge fight that breaks out and there's like chaos that happens. Like everyone's like being pushed. They're screaming. Someone's getting beat the fuck up. Someone's like, get Rhaenyra, get the princess. Where's the princess? You know who gets the princess? Harwin Strong. He scoops her up. He scoops her up and takes her out. I want you to guess. Guess who's getting their ass beat? No, he's doing the beating though. He is beating up little Sir Joffrey. He kills Joffrey. He kills Joffrey right there. Kristen does this a lot. Kristen is kind of crazy. He's hot though. Is somebody gonna match my freak? Yeah. Is somebody gonna match my girl? I don't want to. I don't want to match your freak. Get away from me. You're scaring me. So basically, Sir Kristen Cole kills Joffrey cold blood by punching the shit out of him. Laenor obviously is upset because that's like his lover, and he breaks down. Oh yeah, and Viserys' nose starts bleeding because he's like stressed or whatever. So all that happens. Obviously the celebrations are finished because hey, not only did he just kill a gay guy, he also killed the vibe. Rhaenyra and Laenor like have their ceremony, and Laenor is like still sobbing, and Rhaenyra and him like Rhaenyra tries to kiss him on the lips, and he goes like, he swerves because obviously his lover just died, and Rhaenyra understands this. She's not mad at Laenor. It's just, again, unfortunate circumstances. Sir Kristen Cole goes out to the Godswood, and he's about to commit seppuku, where Alicent walks in on him, and she's basically like, don't do it, babe. Don't do it. And he listens. And that's the end of episode 5. I've changed my outfit. I'm now wearing green. Even though I'm wearing green, I'm not team green. Let's make that clear now. I'm not team green, but outfit changed to show that time has passed. As you can see, the wall has also changed. Actors have changed. And the wall will continue to change, even though there's a 10-year time skip. And I'm going to introduce some of the new characters that are on the board. When I refer to them, especially like the children, whereas now the adults are kind of solidified in their actors, the children do switch actors several times as well as they grow throughout the latter half of the season. But again, I didn't want to print out like 3 pictures of the people who played each of the children. There's already too many pictures on the board already and too much tape being involved. So just know that I will let you know when we time skip. I also wanted to do that again because most of these actors are going to be playing those same characters in season 2. So when I mention like Aemond and Aegon, you're going to see this actor in season 2, not the little baby that played him, obviously. So new pictures on the board. So we still have Viserys up top because he is still king. He's surprisingly still alive. I don't think I mentioned this. At the end of episode 5, he does collapse, and it's supposed to be like a cliffhanger, and you're like, oh my god, he's dead. He's not dead. He's unfortunately still alive for everyone. He's hanging on by a thread though. Alicent is older. Alicent's older, and she is really coming into her own here. She is now played by Olivia Cooke. Rhaenyra is older too. She is played by icon and legend Emma Darcy. Emma Darcy, if you're watching this, because I know you are, please give me a chance. I would treat you so right. I would treat you so right. And remember, Rhaenyra is married to Laenor. Also, Daemon and Laena have gotten married too, and they also have children. Lionel Strong is currently the hand of the king. Otto is not on this board anymore because he's fucked off to the Reach where he belongs. That motherfucker. Here we have Aegon. This is older Aegon. Aegon as in Alicent and Viserys' eldest son, who is younger than Rhaenyra. They also have a second son, Aemond, and then they also have a daughter, Helaena. Rhaenyra has 2 sons as well. She has Jacaerys, who is older, and then Lucerys, who is younger. They also are called Jace and Luke, respectively. They are obviously younger than Aegon and Aemond because we saw a baby Aegon when Rhaenyra was still around like 15, 16, as well as a pregnant Alicent with Aemond. They're a little bit younger than Aegon and Aemond, and that kind of comes up a lot. Daemon and Laena also have children, but they have 2 daughters. They have an elder daughter, Baela, and then a younger daughter, Rhaena. Aegon will have a dragon, Jacaerys will have a dragon, Lucerys will have a dragon, and then Baela will have a dragon, as well as Laena has a dragon, Daemon has a dragon, Rhaenyra has a dragon. Rhaenys has a dragon. Does that make sense? Okay. Episode 6 is called The Princess and the Queen, the princess being Rhaenyra, obviously, and the queen being Alicent. Again, this is 10 years after episode 5, and Rhaenyra is pregnant and actively giving birth, and she gives birth to a baby boy. And then as soon as the baby is like literally like its head's out of the womb, they get a request because Currently, Rhaenyra, Laenor, and their children are living in King's Landing at the Red Keep with the rest of the royal family. They're all kind of there. And so Rhaenyra has another baby who I didn't put on here. Again, kind of like baby Aegon in the first half of this video, he's kind of just used as a plot device. He's not actually like an active character in the story yet. She has this baby, it's a boy, everyone's excited, another boy, 3 boys, hooray. Alicent requests immediately that the baby is brought to her so she can see it. So Rhaenyra's like, are you fucking kidding me? Fine, I will do it myself. So instead of like sending a handmaid to hold the baby up to Alicent and be like, this is the baby, Rhaenyra's like, I'm gonna do it right now so she can feel bad about the fact that I just gave birth. Laenor is like, I'm gonna come with you because what the fuck, why would she do that? So we can see that they do have a good relationship. We love them, ally. So they literally have to walk through the castle though because the Red Keep is huge and their chambers are far away from Alicent's chambers. She's carrying the baby and everyone is like watching them, like all the other lords that are in the castle they're like, what the fuck? Because Rhaenyra looks like she's just given birth. She looks like she's just given birth. She's sweaty. She's in like her undergarments. People are quiet, but they're also like, let me be the first to tell you congratulations, princess. And she's like, thanks. Laenor is like, Rhaenyra, please, like, this is stupid. You don't have to do this. Go and rest. And Rhaenyra is like, no, she wants to see the baby. I'm going to fucking show her the baby. And so they make it to Alicent. And even Alicent's like, Rhaenyra, what are you doing here? Go rest. And Rhaenyra's like, you wanted to see the baby? Here's the fucking baby. Viserys loves the babies. He loves his grandchildren so much, maybe even more than his other children, Aegon, Aemon, and Helena. Although everyone loves Helena. I mean, no one really understands her, but like the adults are kind of like, I mean, she doesn't do anything wrong, really. She's just a little weird. They're like, what's the baby's name? And Laenor butts in. It's like, Joffrey. Do you remember Joffrey? He's not on the board, and he wasn't on the board before, but that was his lover who Criston Cole killed at their wedding. Laenor has just butt in and said, we're going to name this baby after my dead male lover. And even Rhaenyra looks at him and is like, why would you say that? Alicent pulls Laenor aside and she's like, good luck, Laenor. Maybe one day you'll get a child that looks like you. And that's when we're supposed to be like, oh, it's not Laenor's, because obviously it's not. He's gay and duh. Honestly, it was like kind of sickening. Like that was a good read, Alicent. Like honestly, I'll give you that one. And Viserys is like really happy with Rhaenyra. Like he just loves Rhaenyra so much, and you can tell that like she's really grown and matured in the 10 years, and she's done a really good job of like learning how to play the game. And Viserys is obviously like really proud of her, and is even more so proud of her as a mom too. So it's like really sweet. We get a lot of really good Viserys and Rhaenyra moments in the second half of the season that aren't just like, dad, yeah, you know. So that's really nice. So back at kind of like Rhaenyra's family's chamber, Rhaenyra is obviously upset with Laenor for just saying like, we're going to name the baby Joffrey, because Rhaenyra's like, you didn't think to like tell me we were going to name the kid after your dead gay lover. And Laenor's like, yeah, maybe you make a point, but also like, he is technically my kid. Guess who is at their chambers too? Sir Harwin. Do you remember the little sexy little guy that is also Lionel Strong's son, sexy son, who like scooped Rhaenyra up, and like they have a lot of like sexual tension moments? Well, guess what? He's in the chambers because I mean, like, you know, they could play it off and be like, he's protecting the princess. No, he's city watch. He's there because he is the father of Rhaenyra's children, because Laenor's gay. And they tried, and you know, but they have that deal worked out where Laenor's going to be gay and Rhaenyra's going to be a slut, and we love them both for that. Harwin and Rhaenyra have like this understanding, and like we actually don't get a lot of dialogue between these two, because it's kind of like they have to be really careful because there are always people in the court, so they just have a lot of like moments of understanding, and we were truly robbed of Harwin and Rhaenyra scenes, because we do get a couple, but like not enough. And like the fan edits, it's so sad. All the edits of Sir Harwin are just like the same 3 scenes, because he's only in 3 scenes, but he's literally like such a good character. It's very obvious that Jace and Luke are not Laenor's, because they don't have white hair. They have brown hair. But if I'm remembering correctly, in the books, Rhaenys actually has dark hair because she's technically half Baratheon, I believe. And so even though the Velaryons have white hair, Rhaenys has dark hair, and so their kids could have dark hair. This whole little like situation here the bastard situation, dare I say it, is a little bit less confirmed and so obvious than it is in the show. But dare I say, some people are dumb, and so they had to like really spell it out to us and be like, obviously they're bastards. And I think also, I mean, heightens a lot of the conflict. Basically, everyone, it's kind of like an acknowledged truth that they're bastards, and everyone is pretty sure it's Harwin Strong's, but no one has like actually seen them like interact. And so that's also why they're pretty careful about it. But yeah, those are not Laenor's kids. Those are not his kids, but they are. He's like their father. And like Rhaenyra hasn't told Jace and Luke that their dad is not Laenor. Like they're sure that their dad is Laenor, but it's not, it's Harwin. Just remember that. Okay. In the dragon pit, Jace, Luke, Aegon, and Aemond are all training with dragons with the Dragon Masters. I didn't mention the Dragon Masters before because they were kind of just like there. The Dragon Masters are, as the name kind of suggests, the masters of the dragons, in the sense where like they take care of them. Aemond does not have a dragon, and all the boys kind of joke about it. It's very clear that like Aegon's kind of like the ringleader and is a huge asshole. So they all get a pig and dress it up with wings and give it to Aemond, and they're like, we have a gift for you. It's the pink dread, and it's a pig. And it's a joke because he doesn't have a dragon. It sucks. You know, you feel bad for Aemond in this moment. Also, like, Aemond has an eye patch here, but at this moment he has 2 eyes, okay? We'll get to him losing an eye, but just know little Aemond at this point has 2 full eyes. You can also tell that Jace is a little bit reluctant to work with the dragons. Like, he's a little nervous. And Luke is too, but he's also just like, Luke's kind of just like always happy to be there. So after Aegon, Jace, and Luke all give Aemond the pig, they go giggle away like little schoolgirls. They're like, hee, that was so good. So Aemond's like, that sucked. I hate them. And so he goes further into the dragon pit and he goes like face to face with a dragon, basically. I mean, not face to face. I mean, he gets pretty close, but then he gets scared because it starts breathing fire, obviously, and he runs away. So like a big thing that is brought up in this scene too is that, one, they establish the fact that the dragons only answer in High Valyrian. Dracarys is High Valyrian, and then like they have some other things. Dragon riders and their dragons have to have a really strong relationship, and also that like the dragons kind of have to like consent to their riders in the way where like they have to allow the riders to ride them and like form this relationship with them. So there's like a bond there, and so they're trying to build this bond so that the dragon will listen to them, because the dragons are animals and they don't have to listen to fucking anyone. And then we meet Helaena for the first time at all, and Helaena is hanging out with Alicent. I mean, really, Alicent's actually hanging out with Helaena, the other way around. And Helaena really likes bugs. It's like her special interest, and she's like looking at these bugs and she's telling Alicent all about it, and Alicent's like sitting there like, oh my god, this is so boring. But I mean, she's being a supportive mom. Like, I can imagine that's how my mom looks at me anytime I just speak about anything all the time. So like, I get it. And while they are talking, Aemond comes into the room and he's like a little bit charred and he's like really upset. And he tells Alicent, they gave me a pig. They gave me a pig. I mean, he's upset, obviously. Alicent tells him that he'll have a dragon one day. Helaena says something along the lines of, he will have to close an eye. But she says this under her breath. And this is because, like I said, she's a dreamer and she has these prophecies. And so she's implying that he will have to lose an eye in order to get a dragon. Alicent tells Viserys in another moment that Rhaenyra's children, Jace and Luke, are savages. They're awful. They're horrible children. Horrible. And Viserys is basically like, I mean, we know our kids, right? Like, we know Aegon specifically. Like, we all know that Aegon's an asshole. Like, I don't think Jace and Luke, who are like literally like 9, they are going out of their way to hurt Aemond like that. Like, Viserys is basically like, hey, Aegon's an asshole and he probably convinced Jace and Luke to do it. Are you sure it's not our kid? And Alicent's like, no, it's definitely Jace and Luke. Also, Alicent's like, oh, also, like, they're bastards. Like, you know Joffrey? You just saw Joffrey, right? That kid's white and has black hair. That is not Laenor's kid. And then Viserys starts talking about the fact that like there was like a white horse that bred with a black horse and they had like a brown child. And Alicent's like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? And in Viserys' mind, it makes sense. He's like, you know, sometimes genetics are weird. And Alicent's like, I can't believe I'm married to this man. Oh, and Viserys is also like, also don't ever bring this up again. I don't want to hear you talk about the fact that our kids might be bastards. Like, it's not a question in my mind. They're not bastards. Get over it. And this obviously upsets Alicent. So who does she go to? She goes to fucking Kristen Cole. These two now have a solidified alliance. In those 10 years, they've really built up a relationship of hating Rhaenyra. Basically, Alicent is like, Rhaenyra's flaunting her privileges, and then Kristen's like, yeah, she's a spoiled cunt, and Alicent's like, whoa, like, too far. Like, dude, like, don't call her a cunt and don't call her a spoiled cunt. And then we get like a smash cut to Aegon jerking off off the windowsill in King's Landing. And I like think it's the same windowsill that Tommen jumped off of in Game of Thrones and killed himself. So he's like jerking it. Like he's fully nude. He's jerking it. And then Allison bursts in, not a care in the world, and she's like, and she asks, and she's like, who did the thing with the pig? She's like, whose idea was it with the pig? And Aegon's obviously like, I'm like, fuck it, I was just jerking off. My mom just caught me jerking off. And Allison doesn't give a fuck because they know Aegon is a little dickhead. And so Allison's like, I want to know, was it you? Aegon blames Jacaerys. Allison knows it was Aegon, but Aegon blames Jacaerys because of course he's going to. Basically, Allison is like, get your fucking act together, dude. You're a fucking mess and you're supposed to be the heir to the throne. You're the true heir for Viserys. Then we see Laena and Daemon racing on their dragons. They're basically off in Pentos right now, and which is a place in Essos. They are they're putting on a show for for lack of a better word, these investors. Like they want to like form a relationship and alliance with Daemon and Laena. Basically the triarchy, do you remember that? Like the whole crab feeder thing and the stepstones, the triarchy with being like the 3 cities in Essos that hate Westeros. Yeah, so they're back. Apparently this is like a huge plot point that they just keep bringing up. So the triarchy is back, surprise, and they're actually forging an alliance with Dorne this time. Yeah, yikes, because Dorne is like pretty powerful. The people in Pentos that they're visiting want their alliance because they don't want to be hurt by the triarchy. So they're going to use Daemon and Laena's dragons to protect them. Daemon says that he's going to think about the alliance, and Laena's like, dude, I don't want this. I want to go back home. And Daemon's like, we'll think about it. This is a huge point of contention between these two because Laena just wants to be at home with her family, the Velaryons, and home where like she knows the customs and like she's like, she's also pregnant, by the way. Laena's also actively pregnant with another child. And she's like, I want my child to be raised where I'm from, and I want my child to be born in Westeros. And Daemon's kind of like, I don't give a flying fuck, girl. Like these people that just want to like give us a place to live and like give us money. We see the princes, Aegon, Aemond, as well as Jace and Luke all training in the yard. Kristen Cole is training them. Kristen obviously favors Aegon and Aemond over Jace and Luke. Aemond and Aegon spar with Kristen. Harwin is also there. Harwin is seeing all this and he gives some advice to Jace and Luke and is like helping them train as well. Kristen is like seeing this and he's kind of like, I see what's going on. And so he makes Jace and Aegon spar, the 2 oldest on each respective family. And again, Aegon's a little older and a little bit more skilled because he's older and has had more training. And so Aegon knocks him down, but Jacaerys does get back up. Kristen's egging Aegon on and Harwin is helping Jacaerys win the fight against each other. Aegon begins to like really start beating up Jace because Kristen is like telling him to. Harwin gets really upset and is like, are you not going to tell him to like fight with honor? Kristen's like, why are you so invested in the princes anyway? And by the way, also, I didn't mention this, Viserys and Lionel are there. And you can tell Lionel also knows what's going on with Harwin and Rhaenyra's kids. So like Lionel knows because he doesn't want to be accused of the same thing Otto was, which is trying to manipulate the royal doings in order to benefit his family. Because honestly, Lionel, it's not that he doesn't care, but he's trying to play the game, not for power, but for the sake of the realm. Anyways, Harwin starts beating Kristen up. It's great. One of Rhaenyra's handmaidens tells her that there's been an incident in the yard, and Rhaenyra overhears Lionel lecturing Harwin. Harwin denies any relations with Rhaenyra, but Lionel's like, I'm not a fucking idiot, dude. Like, I see them. Like, those are your kids, and you need to get your shit together if you don't want to die. Laenor comes in with this guy named Carl, spelled with a Q, Q-A-R-L, who's his new lover. And so they're coming in drunk. They were like partying or whatever, and Laenor's like talking, and Rhaenyra's like, I need to talk to you about something. And Laenor's like, there's the wars coming back in the Stepstones. This is gonna be an issue. And Rhaenyra's like, dude, people know that our kids are bastards. What are you gonna do about it? Rhaenyra's basically like, hey, like I hear what you're saying about the Stepstones, but please don't go fuck off to the Stepstones because we need you here to play dad more than ever. Like I know you want to go live your best life with your gay lover who's also a warrior. I need you to stay here because people are accusing our kids of being bastards and they will kill them. So maybe think about that a little bit. Laenor thinks it'll help if he's not there because he's like, if I'm not here, people aren't gonna like see the physical comparison and they're just gonna forget about me. So I think it's actually gonna be fine. And Rhaenyra's like, fine, if you think you're gonna leave, I, as your queen or future queen, as your princess, command you to stay. And Leonor's like, damn it, you got me. We're back in Pentos. By the way, Rhaena is the younger of Daemon and Laena's daughters. Rhaena is warming up a dragon egg in the fire, and Laena walks in and is like, oh, sweet girl, like that's not gonna fucking do anything. And Rhaena's like sad. And Lana's like, don't worry, like you'll be a writer someday, because remember, Rhaena doesn't have a dragon, Bela does. And Rhaena's like, I don't know, like you can tell that Dad, Daemon, doesn't like me as much because I'm not a writer and he just likes Bela more. And just Rhaena feels really left out. And Lana's like, don't worry, like when I was your age, I also didn't have a dragon. And now she rides Vhagar. And Vhagar is like the biggest fucking dragon, like the biggest fucking oldest fucking badass dragon. So Lana's like, listen, when I was your age, I also didn't have a dragon. But now I have a dragon. And not only do I have a dragon, it's the biggest fucking strongest dragon in the world. So like maybe think of that. And this makes Rhaena feel a little better. So it's a really sweet moment between mom and daughter. After that, Laena goes to Daemon and she tells Daemon that Laenor has written them. Laenor wrote a letter and is like, hey Laena, Rhaenyra had another son. Yippee. Love from the Red Keep. And Laena's like, hey Daemon, I miss my fucking family. I know you don't, because you like feel weird about your whole family situation because like you're bitter or whatever. But she's like, I miss my family. I love my family. Daemon's like, dude, I'm like fine with being away from Westeros. And Lena's like, yeah, we know you fucking are, you fucking weirdo. Lena has this heartbreaking moment too where she's like, listen, I know you're disappointed. You feel like the world is out against you. She's like, not only do I know you're disappointed with the fact that you're not going to be heir to the throne, but also you're disappointed in me as a wife because you didn't want me as a wife. Daemon's like, I'm not, no. No. She's like, I've made my peace. I understand. And Daemon gets like a little hurt by this, but also like there's a little truth to it. It's like one of those hard truths. Back in King's Landing, Rhaenyra and Alicent are bickering at the council. They're both on the council now. The Stepstones is brought up again in the council and they're all basically like, I don't know what to do. And then in a moment, Rhaenyra actually stands up and apologizes to Alicent. She's like, why don't we make a truce here? There's been a lot of fighting between us. She's like, I feel bad about, my son's being involved in the pig thing. Tensions are high because of the recent birth. And she's like, let's make a deal. Let's betroth Jacaerys to Helena. Rhaenyra also offers one of Syrax's, her dragon's eggs to Aemon, so Aemon can have a dragon. So it's actually like a really sweet offer. And Alicent is such a bitch in this moment, like so anti-girls girl in this moment, because Rhaenyra's nipples start leaking because she just gave birth and is actively nursing. And so Alicent's like, Rhaenyra, and like Rhaenyra's nipples are leaking and Rhaenyra gets embarrassed and leaves the room. And so like that just like really sucks and like really undermines her and is anti-girls girl. I sympathized with you, Alicent. This is what I mean. Like in the second half of the season, Alicent is so much less sympathetic, but I also like that they flip that. So then the teams feel more even, because if they didn't do that, there wouldn't be as much nuance to the sides, which I really enjoy. So then after that, Alicent is talking to Viserys and Alicent's like, dude, like she's so fucking desperate. And Viserys is like, maybe think about it. Like, it's actually, like, even if it is desperate, which, like, it's not in Viserys' eyes, Viserys is like, it's, like, actually a good idea because it actually saves both sides of the family, because then they won't have to fight each other if they're just married, Like, then we don't really have to worry about the whole heir thing, because Alicent's like, no. They each go to their respective chambers. Lionel tries to come in, but Alicent's like, he's resting. But Viserys is like, dude, Lionel, come in anyway. Lionel resigns as Hand of the King. He's like, I can't do it because of conflicts of interest. And Viserys is like, what are you talking about? And Lionel's like, because of my son. And Viserys is like, I don't understand. Lionel's basically like, listen, like, because of what happened in the yard with my son, I can't, in good faith, still continue to be objective as Hand of the King. And Viserys is like, dude, like, what are you even talking about? And Alicent is still there because, I guess I was unclear. Alicent was like trying to leave to go back to her chambers. They were in Viserys' chambers, and Lionel approached them and was like, can I talk to the king? Alicent's like, he's resting, and Viserys is like, come in. Was that not clear? Anyway. And Alicent is basically like, well, yeah, Lionel, why do you want to resign? And Lionel's like, my son, and Alicent's like, say it. But Lionel doesn't say it. He doesn't say that Jace and Luke are his bastards, essentially. Since he cannot say the exact crime, for lack of a better word, that has been committed here, besides Harwin just beating down on Kristen Cole, like the good man that he is, Viserys is like, I'm not going to let you resign, actually. Lionel's like, fine, but can I at least escort Harwin to Harrenhal? Harrenhal is in the Vale. There's like a curse with Harrenhal where basically like every single lord or family that comes into power and has Harrenhal as its seat dies. Wonder when that'll come up again. This time the Strongs have Harrenhal as their seat. If you don't remember, Littlefinger had Harrenhal at some point, as well as someone else. I don't remember at the time of saying this. Just off the top of my head, the knowledge that I have in there is that Littlefinger eventually got Harrenhal, and he also died. So basically, Lionel's like, "Can I at least escort Harwin to Harrenhal, which will be his inheritance?" And Viserys is like, "Fine, go do whatever the fuck you have to do, as long as you just stay here as Hand of the King." Alicent's obviously upset because she's like, "It's obvious. It's obvious." Alicent then meets with Larys because they are now allies, and if you don't remember, Larys is Lionel's other son and Harwin's brother. And basically they eat a little meal together. They're chit-chatting with the girlies. I mean, with the girlies, it's just those two. So they're not chit-chatting with the girlies at all, actually. Larys asks what happened between his dad and Viserys, and Alicent tells him, and while they're talking, a handmaiden comes in and Alicent like sends her away. The handmaidens really don't fuck with Alicent. Like, they're always, anytime Alicent does anything, the handmaidens are always like, Alicent is like, "I don't have any allies here." Like, it's really frustrating. She's like, "If my dad was here, he would be on my side." And Larys is like, interesting, good point that you just made there. But like, also, I could be your ally. So Larys goes to the jail and he talks to some criminals on death row, basically. They don't call it death row, but like, that's what it is. A bunch of criminals who are sentenced to death. He says the crown will offer them mercy if they cut their tongues out and do something. We don't know what that something is yet. And they all take it because obviously they don't want to die. Laena is giving birth on Pentos. Again, she didn't want to give birth in Pentos, but she happens to go into labor there and she's giving birth. And it's really, really painful. She's having a bad time. And the maester there tells Daemon basically like, he's like, "I've done everything I can." And he's given the same options that Viserys was given with Emma, which was, if you don't remember, like basically like, we can save one, the baby or the mom, or they both die. And again, the doctor's like, we can cut out the baby. Again, they don't call it a C-section because Julius Caesar is not canon in this universe, which would kill Laena and save the baby. But unlike Viserys, Daemon doesn't want to do the C-section. But Laena has her own ideas in store, and oh, is it sad. Oh, is it sad. Daemon also feels like a little bit in like fight, flight, or freeze. He's in freeze because he like can't, he doesn't necessarily make a decision in that moment. So Laena is walking to Vhagar, and she's still pregnant. She's still in a lot of pain. Like, she hasn't had the baby yet. She's like walking to Vhagar. So Laena goes up to Vhagar and she's like, "Dracarys, Vhagar, Dracarys." And Vhagar's like, "No, please, no." Obviously, Vhagar doesn't say anything because she's a dragon, but she's like, "No." And Laena's like, "Dracarys, Vhagar." And as Daemon walks up to find Laena, Vhagar kills her. Vhagar lights her on fire. Because I didn't mention this before, but Laena's like, "I don't want to die some rich girl in Pent." She's like, "I want to die an honorable death as like a dragon rider." And she gets that. She didn't want to die in childbirth either. That wasn't said, but you know, it's kind of implied. She didn't just want to die not doing something heroic or honorable. She wanted to die a good death. So in this moment, Laena chooses her death. Daemon sees that happen and he's kind of traumatized because obviously he would be. He didn't know she was gonna do that. We're back in King's Landing. Harwin is saying goodbye to the boys and Rhaenyra. Again, they still don't know that Harwin's their dad. So he's kind of just saying goodbye. Rhaenyra is obviously really upset, but she doesn't like really say anything because she can't say anything. What is she supposed to say? Like, it's just an unfortunate situation that they're in. After Harwin leaves, Jace asks if Harwin is his father. Rhaenyra doesn't deny it, but she's like, "You're Targaryen, that's all that matters." And Jace is like, "Huh? Okay." Rhaenyra gets Laenor from the yard and tells them that they are leaving. And Laenor asks about her proposal that she had made to Alicent about betrothing Jace and Helena. And Rhaenyra is basically like, "They think I'm a fool. We shouldn't have stayed here as long as we have. And they hate me. And we need to go be on Dragonstone and like be our own family and be removed from this." And Laenor's like, "I thought you wanted to stay here." Rhaenyra's like, "No, like we need to go." And Rhaenyra also is like, "Also bring your boy toy." Ally. Then we get a glimpse of Harwin and Lionel riding to Harrenhal, and we see a mysterious group of cloaked men watching them ride to Harrenhal. That mysterious group of cloaked men are the criminals that Larys hired. What are they gonna do? As Lionel and Harwin are sleeping in the castle, a fire happens, and Lionel gets trapped in his room and is like starts coughing in his sleep, and Harwin goes to save him because that's his dad, but he can't get in because like there's a fire, and Harwin's basically like, I'm gonna burn alive. It's like really sad. It's really fucking scary. So basically they both burn to death in Harrenhal. So the criminals that Laris hired burn down Harrenhal, or the inside of it at least, while Harwin and Lionel are still there. So they are dead. That's his fucking dad and his brother. That's fucked up. That's fucked up. We hate this guy. We hate this guy. Laris is like doing this voiceover where he's like, children are a weakness. And as this whole voiceover is happening, Rhaenyra is arriving on Dragonstone with Laenor and her kids, and Viserys appears to be kissing the ring that he had with Emma. So he's still thinking of Emma, and it's clear that he's unhappy in his situation here. While this voiceover is still happening, corpses are being hauled out of Harrenhal. Daemon, Baela, and Rhaena are mourning Laena. Then we see that Laris is actually talking to Alicent. So this voiceover was a conversation he's having with Alicent currently. And Alicent's like, what are you talking about? No, you didn't. No, you didn't. And Laris is like, yeah, I killed my family for you. And Laris is like, you wanted a friend, babe. I'm right here. Laris basically says, like, I only did what you asked me to do. And Alicent's like, I did not ask you to do that. I did not ask you to kill them. And Laris is like, don't worry. I knew what you meant. And I'm sure you'll reward me when the time is right. She's horrified. She's horrified. All right, episode 7. This is called Driftmark. In the corner, fucking losers over here. Otto's back. Wah, wah, because now he's reinstated as Hand of the King. Boo, we hate you. So we're at Driftmark, which is where the Velaryons live. It's for Laena's funeral. Oh, I have to take her off because she's died. Sorry, I forgot. It's her funeral. Everyone's there. It's really awkward. Alicent makes this the funniest fucking face in the entire world towards Rhaenyra, because Rhaenyra and Daemon keep making eyes at each other, but they like won't talk. Vaemon's there. Do you remember him? This guy, that is Corlys's brother. He makes a lot of shady comments. Basically, he knows that Laenor's kids aren't his. And Vaemon knows that if Corlys ever dies, they need a male heir. And he thinks he's the only rightful one. I mean, technically, like, yeah, I guess he is. But you don't have to be such a bitch about it. That's the biggest thing. Is like, yeah, maybe you're right, but like, don't be a bitch about it. Like, that's most of what happens in the second half of the season. At the like funeral reception, do you call it? Like, they have a little like feast afterwards. Rhaenyra tells Jace to go over to his cousins Baela and Rhaena and like help them. And Jace is basically like, I should be mourning too, because my dad's dead. And Rhaenyra's like, dude, like, what? No, don't say that. And like, also like, just go be a good cousin and like say like, I'm so sorry for your loss. And he does. And this shows that Rhaenyra is actually like a very kind and thoughtful person, but also is good at playing the politics. A lot happens at the reception too. So Helena is talking to her bugs again, and she's talking about these like spools of thread. Like, she's like, spools of green, spools of black, and like thread, the green thread, black thread. And so this idea of like tapestries, spool of thread. Tapestries are like the histories, because histories are woven into tapestries. How many times am I going to explain that in ways that still don't make sense? But like, you know what I mean, I guess, right? So like this idea of the spool of time, spool of thread, spool of history being wound with green and black, which will be the team. So there's a team green and a team black, which is like the major conflict here. Aegon and Aemon talk about how Aegon is betrothed to Helena. Now, I don't know if you remember, Alicent made a shady-ass comment to Rhaenyra like a long time ago, saying that Targaryens have queer customs, and then she marries her kids off to each other, which is a Targaryen custom. So she's like a huge hypocrite. She is. Someone had to say it, and I'm sorry, it's me. Aegon's like, I don't want to marry that dumb bitch. She's so weird. And Aemon's like, that's our sister, and also like I would do it because like that's my duty. And you can see this dynamic between the two of them where it's like Aegon is kind of like the reluctant heir, and Aemon is the guy who's not the heir and will and wants to fulfill it because he knows he'd be good at it. So Aegon and Aemon are kind of like Black Mirrors, for lack of a better term, to Viserys and Daemon, where Viserys is the reluctant heir, but he's kind. Aegon's the reluctant heir, but he's not kind. Aemon's not kind either. He would be a better heir in a way. Daemon wouldn't be the better heir, but he wants the throne, but he wants the power. So Aemon and Daemon both want the power, whereas Aegon and Viserys don't necessarily do, and they're reluctant. Corlys is telling Luke about his birthright, which is Driftmark. So if Corlys were to ever die, his seat would go to Laenor's second son, because obviously their first son is Jacaerys and he's the heir to the throne after Rhaenyra. So basically the second son gets Driftmark. And Luke's like, I don't want Driftmark, because if I get Driftmark, that would mean everyone's dead. You can see Luke is just like this little sweetheart who just wants everyone to live. He's such a little sweetie pie. We love Luke. Laenor's also like really upset. I mean, like his sister just died, but he's like standing in the ocean and he looks like he's gonna kill himself. It's really bad. Corlys like goes up to Carl and they're like, go get your patron. Go get your boy. So Carl goes to retrieve Laenor, who looks like he's gonna fucking kill himself. Viserys tries to comfort Daemon, and it's a little awkward. And Viserys is like, you know, you can come back to King's Landing if you like. And Daemon's like, fuck no, dude. Fuck you. Rhaenyra then tells Jason Luke to go to bed. And Viserys goes to bed. And as he's walking away, he looks at Alicent and he's like, I'm going to bed, Emma. That's not Emma. Emma's dead. And in his old age, he has truly, I mean, not even lost his mind. I mean, like, obviously he's like, has like dementia or something, but also like, again, he's kind of like not super happy with where he's at in life right now. Aegon is super fucking drunk. And Otto has to go like grab him and is like, once again, get your shit together and go to bed. Everyone is constantly telling Aegon to get his shit together. It's the funniest thing until it's not. And then Aemon hears a roar in the distance. I wonder what that noise could be. And he goes to go find the dragon. Rhaenys and Corlys talk in their room, and Rhaenys notes how Laena wanted to come home and Daemon told her not to, or told them that they couldn't. And Corlys is like, don't blame Daemon for that. Like, that's not fair to blame him. Rhaenys thinks the gods are punishing them, as in the Velaryons and like their family specifically, for their pride and ambition, because Rhaenys was, again, the queen that never was, and Corlys is very ambitious. It's like constantly brought up that the Velaryons' like biggest hubris is hubris. Hamartia? Is Hamartia? I don't remember. That's from like Theater History 1. Corlys is like, no, the whole point of being alive is to build a legacy and is to have something that lives on beyond you. And Rhaenys is like, that I don't think is the part of life. And then she's like, also, I want Driftmark to pass through Laena's line. So she wants Driftmark to go to Baela and Rhaena, instead of Jacaerys and Lucerys. Or she wants Driftmark to go through Baela or Rhaena and not Lucerys. And she's like, because they're bastards, I don't want them to have it. Corlys is like, history does not remember blood, it remembers names. That was kind of a sick-ass line. Corlys has a lot of really good fucking lines. We love Corlys. We love the Velaryons in general, but I mean, Corlys is fucking badass. He's also called the Sea Snake. Oh, Corlys also says something along the lines of like, he doesn't want to put shame on Jason Luke anymore, because like they're already given a bad hand. It's not their fault. They're bastards to the heir to the throne who shouldn't really even be heir because she's a woman. And he's like, I don't want to hurt those boys anymore. Like, let's just give Luke Driftmark. Rhaenyra and Daemon finally fucking talk to each other and reunite on the beach. And Rhaenyra tells Daemon, like, they talk about their marriages basically. And Rhaenyra is doing a lot of, most of the talking actually. And Rhaenyra is saying stuff like, you know, I've tried to be dutiful. It's been really hard. She's like, you know, I love my children, but I mean, Laenor, there's no love in the marriage for obvious reasons that they all know. And Daemon, like, understands. They talk a little bit about Sir Harwin, and Rhaenyra's like, I don't think Alicent killed Sir Harwin. Like, I don't think she's capable of cold-blooded murder. Remember this. Daemon's basically like, don't underestimate Alicent. Like, she is sneakier than you think. Then Rhaenyra's like, Daemon, you abandoned me. And Daemon is like, I didn't abandon you. You were a child. I had to go live my life as an adult, and then you had to go be a child and be a child bride. Rhaenyra asks if Daemon loved her as in Laena. Daemon's like, well, we were happy. Rhaenyra's like, I'm sorry for your loss. And Daemon's like, don't be. He's like, at least I'm allowed to mourn, in reference to Harwin, because she can't mourn Harwin because it's a huge secret. Rhaenyra touches his neck then and is like, I'm no longer a child. And then they kiss, and then they go have sex. While that's happening, Aemond is running up the dunes and he actually does find Vhagar sleeping, and he sneaks up and tries to climb onto Rhaegar's saddle, which startles her, obviously, because he's non-consensually climbing her. And again, Vhagar is like the biggest, toughest fucking dragon. Vhagar wakes up and is like, what are you doing? Obviously, she doesn't say that because she's a dragon, but like that's what she means. But then he like calms her down, and I guess Vhagar does accept Aemond as her new rider. I mean, I don't guess that is exactly what happens. And they fly, and Aemond starts to get the hang of it, and you can tell he's like really fucking satisfied with the fact that he finally has a fucking dragon, and not just any dragon, Vhagar. Then Baela and Rhaena go wake up Jace and Lucerys, and they're like, someone took Vhagar, who again is their mother's dragon. That's their dragon. And remember, Rhaena doesn't have a dragon. So like, you know, she's sad, but obviously after Laena died, she kind of assumed that she would inherit Vhagar. Daemon and Rhaenyra are also still on the beach, and they see Vhagar fly overhead, and they're like, uh-oh, who's riding Vhagar? Baela, Rhaena, Jacaerys, and Lucerys confront Aemond. Baela and Rhaena are like, you took our mom's dragon. And Aemond's like, she wanted me to ride her. Ask her. They start fucking throwing hands. They're like, brah, brah. And then Aemond starts hitting them back, and it's like turns into a fight. And then obviously Jace and Luke aren't just going to stand there, so they start getting into it as well, and they're all beating each other up. It's just like a bunch of kids beating each other up. It's not funny. It's not funny, but it's funny. Eventually, Aemond gets Luke into a chokehold. There's like a lot of tension between Aemond and Luke as they're both second sons. Jace whips out a knife. He brought a knife to a fist fight, and Aemond is like, I don't give a fuck that you brought a knife. I got this big ass rock, and he goes hit him in the head, and Luke slashes his eye out. Remember when Helena said that he's gonna have to lose an eye to gain a dragon? Well, guess what? That's exactly what happened. Helena was right. Basically, Baela, Rhaena, Jace, Luke, and Aemond are then all found, and they are brought to Alicent, Viserys. Otto's there, Kristen's there, and like basically like who would eventually be Team Green. So like the nuclear royal families people are there, and they're all talking about what they're gonna do. Rhaenyra eventually enters, Corlys enters, as well as Daemon. So they all enter after the fact. Luke and Jace tell Rhaenyra that I forgot this. Aemond calls them bastards during the fight, which is also why it escalated. I didn't mention that, but that's what happened. Then Viserys gets pissed because they're like calling each other bastards. He wants to know who gave him that idea. They want to know, like, Aemon, like, who told you that they were bastards? And Aemon's like, Aegon. And they're like, Aegon, who told you they were bastards? And Aegon's like, are you guys fucking blind? Everyone knows. Like, honestly, he kind of eats him up in that moment. Like, teenage Aegon's kind of like a little bit of a drama queen, but like kind of fucking funny as hell though. Viserys is like, guys, I need you all to stop fighting. This is so fucking hard for me. Stop fighting. And Alicent is like, hey, just saying stop fighting's not going to be enough. My son lost an eye. Something needs to be done. Alicent's like, an eye for an eye. Literally, an eye for an eye. Give me Luke's eye. I want an eye. Viserys is like, hey, girly pop, calm down. It's like, I know it's bad, but like, we're not going to de-eye another one of the princes. Like, we don't need to keep taking eyes away from princes. There's already one prince without an eye. Alicent tells Kristen to go get her a blade because Kristen's like sworn to Alicent, and so he only accepts commands from the queen. He's like the queen's protector, and so he listens to her because everyone else is like, Kristen, no. And Kristen's like, I gotta do what she says, dog. Also, I want to. Viserys threatens to take out the tongue of anyone who calls them bastards. So he's like putting his foot down. He's like, stop calling these boys bastards. They are my grandsons. Who gives a fuck? As Viserys starts to walk away, because Viserys is like, conversation over. They're not bastards. I'm gonna detongue anyone who says that they are. He starts to walk away. Alicent gets so fucking pissed, and Viserys has like a blade on him. So Alicent like grabs the blade and goes after Luke and Jace. And in that moment, it's like a little bit of chaos, and Rhaenyra ends up stopping her. It's this really good scene. I'll probably just put it here because it's like so fucking good.
Oh, you flouted your duty, please.
Alicent, let her go.
Where is duty? Where is sacrifice? It's trampled under your pretty foot again.
Release the blade, Alicent.
And now you take my son's eye. And to even that you feel entitled. Exhausting, wasn't it? Hiding beneath the cloak of your own righteousness. But now they see you as you are.
Kristen tries to go after Rhaenyra in that moment, and Daemon stops him. So Daemon has like Kristen held back and Rhaenyra is holding back Alicent with a knife. After that little moment, Alicent like goes again and actually ends up stabbing Rhaenyra. There's like a bit of awkward silence and tension, and Aemon's basically like, it's okay, you don't have to feel bad for me, Mom. I might have lost an eye, but I gained a dragon. And you know what? The episode's still not over. There's still more that happens. Otto visits Alicent in her chambers and is basically like, hey, like, that was a good move. Honestly, I did not think you had the balls. And Otto's basically also like, hey, if we're going to win this thing, Aemon makes a good point. We have Vhagar now, and Vhagar is going to be important in the war to come. And I'm happy to see that you're actually determined to win this. Rhaenyra is having her arm sewed up. Laenor comes in. He's clearly still upset about Laena, and he feels like he's now failed both his sister and his wife because he was not there in the last scene. Laenor was very clearly absent from the issues that just happened that we all just saw. Laenor wasn't there, so it's also not good. And he's like, hey, I failed as a brother and I'm failing as a husband, and honestly, I suck. They also have a moment where Rhaenyra's like, I did want to bury your kids. Like, we did try. So no one can blame us for not trying. She's just like, it's just the unfortunate situation that we're in. Because Laenor's like, I hate the gods for making me the way that I am. And Rhaenyra's like, I don't hate, like, don't say that. I don't hate them. The gods made you a kind and admirable person. So don't fucking say fucking self-hating ass bullshit like that. Laenor also says that Carl has gone to the Stepstones to fight. And he, as in Laenor, is going to recommit himself to Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra is not so sure because she, remember, just had sex with Daemon. And now that Daemon's wife is dead, they could get married if only Laenor wasn't there. Also, Laenor and Laena are siblings, which makes that also a little bit more complicated for reasons that I feel are pretty obvious. Alicent and Viserys are like riding in a little horse-drawn cart, and Alicent tries to apologize to Viserys, which Otto told her to do, and he does not want to hear it. He's basically like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Rhaenyra and Daemon are talking, and Rhaenyra talks a lot about how fire is a prison. Targaryens owe their power to fire because dragons, and she notes that they both lost someone very precious to them directly because of fire. Daemon makes a funny little comment, which is not actually funny, but it's funny, that the Velaryons were smarter for choosing the sea. Rhaenyra does ask Daemon to marry her in this moment, and Daemon's like, right, but Laenor? And so they start to come up with a plan on how they're going to get married. And we'll get to that plan in a second, because Larys offers himself up again to Alicent. Larys is like, hey girlie, do you need me again? Because I saw what happened, or I heard about what happened, and I could help. And Alicent's like, no. Daemon approaches Carl, who honestly I probably should have hung up here, but I didn't. Okay, sorry. Daemon comes up to Carl and is like, hey, you know, there's some places across the narrow sea that could be a little bit more accepting. He doesn't say that, but he's like, listen, like, they don't care about who you are over there, and you could kind of live a free life over there as long as you have money. Wink, I'll give you money. Wink, wink. Then Daemon's like, make it a quick death with lots of witnesses. And then us in the audience, the watchers, are going, no, they're gonna kill Laenor. Laenor finds Carl in, I don't know why I'm pointing, Carl's not there. Laenor finds Carl in Corlys's hall on Driftmark, because again, this whole episode takes place on Driftmark. So they start fighting, and basically then Corlys and Rhaenys walk in, and they find a dead, charred body, who they presume is Laenor. Rhaenyra and Daemon get married in a Valyrian ceremony, so it's not like a traditional Faith of the Seven ceremony. After that happens, Laenor is not dead. He faked his death. Him and Carl faked his death, and they're sailing on a boat off to, we presume, a place across the narrow sea. And Laenor shaves his head, so people don't know he's a Velaryon. He's not dead, so I'm just going to gently place him on the ground. That's the end of episode 7. All right, we have another board change for episode 8. Viserys is at the top because he's kind of like stuck in the middle. And then I have laid out kind of where the two teams are at this moment. On Team Green's side, we obviously have Alicent and Otto Hightower, as well as Aegon, Aemond, Helena, and Larys and Kristen. And then on Team Black, we have Rhaenyra, Daemon, Jace, Luke, Baela, and Rhaena, who are now a little family since Rhaenyra and Daemon have gotten married. Then off to the side here, I have put the remaining Velaryons that are not married into Team Black, basically. Rhaenys, Corlys, and Vaemond over there. For now, they have not chosen a side. Episode 8 is called The Lord of the Tides. We have another time jump, so we're 8 years later now, and we have the older children finally. So these actors are finally showing up. So a maester is telling Rhaenys that Corlys is returning from battle at the Stepstones. So there's fighting over there again. Yes, apparently the Stepstones are a major plot point, apparently, allegedly. And apparently Corlys is severely injured, and it looks like he's probably not going to make it. Remember when we were talking about Luke potentially inheriting Driftmark after Corlys's death? Yeah, well, that actually might happen now. And this obviously pisses Vaemond off, because Vaemond's like, those kids are bastards. They're not Velaryons, and Velaryon should have Driftmark. Rhaenys and Vaemond are fighting, basically, because Rhaenys isn't like necessarily sure what she wants to do, because she wants to honor Corlys's wishes, which is to have Luke still inherit it, especially if Corlys is going to die. Like, that's her husband and she loves him. But also, Rhaenys also agreed, if you don't remember from like 5 seconds ago when I said it, that she wants it to pass to Baela and Rhaena if it's going to pass to anyone, and not Vaemond. And Vaemond is like, I'm the rightful heir. I want it to be me. There's also part of Rhaenys that is like, I'm going to rule it. Vaemond basically is like, I'm going to go to the crown. And he does. So I'm going to move him over basically to Team Green. Rhaenys is still kind of not associating herself with Team Black yet, because in her eyes, Rhaenyra and Daemon plotted against Laenor so that they could get married. And also potentially the same thing with Laena. So she does not trust these two because she thinks they killed her children. Daemon finds out that Syrax, again, Rhaenyra's dragon, has laid more eggs. And Baela is actually staying at Driftwood. So Baela is a ward to Rhaenys right now. And Baela writes to Daemon and is like, hey, Dad, shit's going down over here. Corlys might die. Daemon's talking about potentially, what's the word? There's a specific word for it. But basically taking over the seat of Driftmark over Luke. Rhaenyra is teaching Jace High Valyrian with their maester, and while this is happening, Daemon shows up and shows Rhaenyra the note from Baela, and Rhaenyra is also pregnant again. She's gonna have another kid, and they all decide to sail to King's Landing because they know that there's gonna be a huge talk about succession for Driftmark. While they make it over to King's Landing, they are greeted by Lord Caswell, who's not super important. But basically what's important here is that they are a royal family, so they should be greeted by someone else of that same status as a sign of respect. They are in the castle, they're in the Red Keep, and basically they're noticing that they took down all the Targaryen regalia and they've replaced it all with the sign of the seven, which is the 7-pointed star. We see the King's Council. They are talking about the issue of Driftmark. Otto also confirms that he was the one, it was his idea to send Lord Caswell to greet them, quote, as befits their station. Alicent is then interrupted at the council and is told that there's delicate matters going on with Aegon in his chambers and that she should like go check it out. Rhaenyra and Daemon go to say hello to Viserys, who is like actually like literally rotting away. Like that man should not still be alive. Daemon is telling him basically like the sea snake, Corlys, has taken a grave wound, and he's like, you need to do something about the succession. And Rhaenyra sees very clearly that Viserys literally is not in the right mind and cannot do anything. So Rhaenyra is not treating this moment as like a business decision. And I don't think Daemon intended to do that in a way where it was like disrespectful to Viserys. I think he only does it because he doesn't know how to deal with his emotions. And so he's only asking that because what else is he to do in that moment? Like mourn for his brother? Like they don't have a relationship like that. And also he's a man and men don't feel emotions. But Rhaenyra sees what's happening in this moment and realizes Viserys can't help them because he's like literally sick off of milk at the poppy all the time. Surprise, her and Daemon have 2 sons who again I'm not going to put on here because they're plot devices, not true characters at this time. But they have 2 sons together now. So not only do they have Jace and Luke through Rhaenyra and Harwin, and Baela and Rhaena through Daemon and Laena, they also have 2 kids of their own named Aegon and Viserys. Very sweet. So Rhaenyra introduces Viserys to Aegon and Viserys. Viserys gets really overwhelmed and he starts to like fade out and he like can't handle it anymore. And then the kids start crying. It's a very sad moment, actually. A servant approaches Alicent. Her name's Talia. She'll become important later. And it's implied that Aegon R-words this little servant girl, not Talia, but another servant girl named Diana. Diana is brought to Alicent, and Alicent actually is very kind to her, like hugs her and calms her down. And she tells Diana that it's not her fault what happened. But then she's also like, don't fucking tell anyone. She's like, because if you do tell someone, they'll think that you tried to seduce him. And like, why were you alone with the prince? All these things. And she pays Diana off and is basically like, don't say anything again. It's fucked up, but it's also like nice because she like could have been a lot worse, I guess. And then Alicent gives Diana the Plan B tea. So the Plan B tea makes another reappearance. Alicent then goes to Aegon, who's naked again in his room, and she like slaps him and is like, again, get your shit together, dude. Like, why the fuck would you do that? She also is like, you are no son of mine. And Helena interrupts. She like walks into the room and she's like, where's Diana? She's supposed to get the kids dressed. And then Alicent and Aegon look at her because it's like, I mean, Helena doesn't know. Oh yeah, because Aegon and Helena have 2 kids whose names I can't remember, and honestly it doesn't really matter right now. Alicent then finally goes to greet Rhaenyra and Daemon, and they all bicker about Viserys' condition because they, as in Rhaenyra and Daemon, feel like the Hightowers, Alicent and Otto, are keeping Viserys on Milk of the Poppy in order to manipulate him, and Alicent's like, no, like he's in a bad condition and he actually needs Milk of the Poppy to feel good. Then Jace and Luke go to the training grounds to like kind of reminisce on like their good old days as little schoolboy princes. And they see Aemond, who's like older now and has this really sick eye patch, training with Kristen. And like Aemond's obviously a very, very good fighter. It's very clear because he basically, he's sparring with Kristen and he gets the upper hand on Kristen. So Aemon's like really good. Aemon also then sees Jace and Luke there and asks if they want to train. But then suddenly Vaemond shows up and everyone's like, oh boy, it's happening. Alicent and Vaemond are like having a little meeting, and Otto is telling Alicent to be calm and just wink wink, basically meaning like there's going to be a war in the future with succession as soon as Viserys dies, which is probably soon. We can have a child leading the most powerful navy, so it only makes sense that a grown man would be there, which honestly like is a fair point. Basically they decide, it's definitely going to Vaemond. Like that's the just thing to do. And they're basically coming up with their reasoning if anyone was to ask why they did what they did. Rhaena finds Rhaenys in the Godswood because she's also there. And Rhaenyra is also with Rhaena. God, that's going to be, I just realized how confusing that's going to be to explain because they all have like the same name basically. Rhaenyra compliments Rhaenys in raising a Bela as a ward and then is like, hey, Rhaenys, can I speak to you alone? And then Rhaena goes and leaves. And so now it's just Rhaenys and Rhaenyra in the Godswood. Rhaenyra knows that Rhaenys is just going to be like, I should rule Driftmark. Rhaenyra is also like, also, by the way, I didn't kill your son. Like, truthfully, I did not kill your son. I was not complicit in that. Rhaenyra also offers to betroth Jace and Luke to Bela and Rhaena to like strengthen all of their claims. Rhaenys kind of sees the reasoning behind this, but also it is a risk to align themselves with Rhaenyra like that. So basically Rhaenys is like, when the Hightowers bring you to your knees, Rhaenys will have to stand alone. Rhaenys is kind of a girl who just like looks out for herself because she's been fucked over in the past. And honestly, like I don't blame her. Rhaenys is kind of a badass and we love her. Rhaenyra then like feeling shit out of luck goes to Viserys, who remember is dying. Rhaenyra goes to Viserys and asks Viserys if he believes that Aegon's dream is true. She's like, hey, by naming me heir, you divided the realm, which is actually the complete opposite of what the point of the prophecy is. So like, why would you do that? Viserys calls her Alicent, so he's like obviously not there. Viserys also calls Rhaenyra his only child, so he's like not acknowledging Aegon, Aemon, and Helena at all. Rhaenyra asks Viserys to defend her in court, but he's not there. The next morning, Viserys is like getting ready. And by getting ready, it's like a bunch of people putting a bunch of bandages on his wounds. It's like disgusting. He looks like that one character in SpongeBob that's like chocolate. But Viserys asks Otto to have dinner with his entire family. He's like, I want everyone to sit together and have a meal. I want us to eat. And also don't give me Milk of the Poppy. I know what it does to me. And Otto's like, no, drink the Milk of the Poppy. And Viserys is like, just arrange the fucking dinner, dude. Just do what I say. So then we're having petitions for Driftmark's succession, and who is watching over it but the Hand of the King, Otto. Vaemond goes first, and basically he's like, I'm the only rightful and true heir, only male kin to Corlys, so I should get it. Rhaenyra goes next, and as she's about to talk, who shows up to the throne room, but Viserys. This is a huge deal because Viserys has not been doing anything politics-wise in a very long time. It's been all the queen and the hand of the king, basically doing everything behind the scenes with the council. He's doing it because Rhaenyra asked him to. He wants to defend Rhaenyra. He wants to make things right. He tells Otto basically to like fuck off and that he's gonna do the presiding. Viserys sits on the throne and basically he's like, I'm really confused why we're even fucking talking about this because I thought we decided a long time ago that Luke was going to get Driftmark. Like, why are we even here? This is a waste of time. And then Viserys is also like, the only person who even knows what Corlys would even want is Rhaenys. So why don't we let Rhaenys talk? And Rhaenys surprises everyone and is like, Corlys wanted Luke to get Driftmark. And even Rhaenyra is shocked by this because obviously their last conversation did not go well. And she assumed that Rhaenys was just going to argue for herself. But in this moment, Rhaenys kind of allies herself with Team Black and Rhaenyra specifically. Rhaenys also agrees to, in that moment, by saying, also, now Jace, Luke, how is the best way to explain this? That Jace and Baela, the two eldest, are now betrothed, and Luke and Rhaena are now betrothed. A lot happens in this scene. I have to like keep checking my notes. After that, Vaemond obviously gets upset because reasons and basically being undermined in front of everyone. He also is like, hey, Viserys, you broke customs to name Rhaenyra as heir, so why can't you break customs to name me as heir? When it makes more sense because I'm a man and also actually related to Corlys because I'm not a bastard. Just straight up calls them bastards. He just says it. And Viserys is like, I'm going to have your tongue for that. That's what I said is going to happen. Yeah, I'm going to take your tongue for that. And Daemon just beheads him. Daemon literally just... That is the most accurate recreation I could have made. And you can see his tongue poke out and Daemon's basically like, he can keep his tongue. So obviously Vaemon's not getting it and Luke is inheriting Driftmark with Rhaena. After all that happens, Viserys starts to feel faint, obviously, because that's a lot to deal with. And then they offer him milk with a poppy, but he's like, no, I don't want it. He must make things right. He says that. He's like, I must make things right. The royal family does have dinner together. A lot happens at the dinner. Basically, they all toast to the betrothals of Jace, Luke, Baela, and Rhaena, as well as Luke getting Driftmark. Aegon keeps making dirty comments to Jace about how he's probably bad at sex and how he'll have to learn to pleasure someone as beautiful as Baela. Also, I didn't mention this before, he has like a Phantom of the Opera mask and he takes it off and he doesn't have an eye and his face is withering away. And he's like, I want my family to see me as me. He also is like, guys, please stop fighting. Stop it. Stop fighting, please. Stop fighting! So in that moment, Rhaenyra raises a cup and she toasts to Alicent. You've been really loyal to my dad and I appreciate you being a good wife to him. And, you know, we were once friends and I just want to thank you for taking care of my dad like that. Alicent notes that they have more in common than they think, which is true. And then Alicent also toasts to her as future queen, which pisses Otto off a little. Aegon then like tells Baela that if Baela wants a good fuck, she could just fuck him. And Jace gets pissed and he like slams his fist down on the table and everyone's like, what? And Jace is like, so he toasts to Aegon and Aemond, hoping that they could be friends and allies. And then Helena, sweet baby angel girl, makes a toast to Baela and Rhaena. And she's like, you know, marriage isn't so bad. Mostly he just ignores you until he wants to have sex. And then Jace like feels bad for her and also one-ups Aegon by asking Helena to dance. Jace asks Helena to dance after that. And they have a good little dance time. It's very cute. The rest of the dinner, family dinner goes well. And Viserys is very happy. It's very nice. However, eventually Viserys does get a little overwhelmed and has to go and rest because it's a lot. So after he goes away, Aemond keeps staring at Luke because Luke like cut out his eye. Do we remember that? How can we forget? This is Aemond. Aemond makes a toast to Jace and Luke and Joffrey. And basically he's like, toast to you guys for being handsome, wise, and strong. And obviously everyone gets upset. Jace fucking punches Aemond. Aegon sees this and pounds Luke's head into the table. Rhaenyra's like, children, go to your room. Alicent invites Rhaenyra and her family to stay at King's Landing because they, you know, like at that moment they kind of like forgive each other. They have those toasts and they understand each other. But unfortunately for them, the seeds have already been sown in their children. So it wouldn't even matter if they're not fighting anymore. Their children, it's just never not gonna be right. Rhaenyra is basically like, no, I'll take them back to Dragonstone and I'll come back. I'll fly back on Syrax. Guess who's back? Mysaria is back. I'm gonna put her over here. She's not with a specific team, but basically now she's like a spy master in the city. She's kind of made a name for herself, girl boss queen, and auto spying. Often like they have like the same group of spies kind of that like works for both of them. Is there a better way to explain that? Probably, but you know, for now we'll just keep that. Mysaria, we can see, is getting information from Talia, who is Alicent's like main servant. And Talia is basically telling Mysaria, we assume, about the whole situation with Aegon R-wording Diana. Viserys is in a lot of pain. He's in his chambers and Alicent is with him. And Alicent gives Viserys milk of the poppy. Viserys apologizes to her. Viserys in this moment believes he's been talking to Rhaenyra, because every time Rhaenyra has talked to Viserys, Viserys assumes that she's Alicent. Viserys is talking to Alicent and he assumes it's Rhaenyra. He starts talking about Aegon's dream. Alicent doesn't know what Aegon's dream is because the dream is a secret that is passed down between heirs, and the only people who know it that are alive right now are Viserys and Rhaenyra. Alicent just thinks he's talking about their son, Aegon. Viserys says, "It is you. You are the one. You must do this." And Alicent believes that him saying this is him telling her to usurp, that's the word I was looking for before, to usurp Rhaenyra and make Aegon king, which is not what he's saying. But what the fuck else is Alicent supposed to think in this moment? Viserys doesn't even think he's talking to Alicent. He thinks he's talking to Rhaenyra. So Alicent's like, "I understand, my king," and she walks away. Viserys then fucking dies. He dies, and as he's passing away, he's like reaching up to the ceiling. He sees someone and he says, "My love," dead. Obviously, we can assume that he sees Aemma. I'm going to move Corlys and Rhaenys up here, not because they're more powerful, but just because Rhaenys still hasn't really committed to a team here. She's kind of playing both sides. So next we're on the penultimate episode, which is episode 9. This is called The Green Council. This episode takes place, I believe, entirely in the Red Keep, focusing on what's happening with the Hightower side of the family. Little serving boy is walking through the castle. It's like really dark and it's really solemn, and he tells Talia some information, and then Talia goes to tell Alicent. Alicent gets dressed and goes to Otto, and Alicent tells Otto that Viserys told her last night that Viserys wants Aegon to be king. Oh, also that she also tells him that Viserys is dead. I forgot that part. So then they call the King's Council to a meeting, and they announce that Viserys has passed, and Otto says that they're going to call Viserys the Peaceful. And then Otto also repeats the message that Alicent said to the council, basically saying like, also Viserys told Alicent that he wanted Aegon to be his heir and not Rhaenyra. Otto's like, so the plans that we have in place should be go now. And basically Alicent's like, what are you talking about? So some of the council had been meeting without Alicent and Lord Beesbury to talk about how they were going to, for lack of a better word, usurp the throne. So Alicent's like, what plan? What is happening? So Alicent didn't know that that was a plan. She's innocent in that. Lord Beesbury is basically like, we swore to Rhaenyra, okay? It is high treason to do what you're suggesting. Kristen Cole's in the room. What does he do in this moment? He tells Lord Beesbury to sit down, but he pushes his head down. And I haven't talked about this before, but basically when the council meets, they all have like these little balls that they put in to be like, I'm here. And they're like glass balls, basically. So Sir Kristen's like, sit down, Lord Beesbury. And he like pushes down Lord Beesbury's head and kills him. Dude keeps fucking killing people and he doesn't get in trouble for it. Lord Beesbury, before he died, was also like, I don't think Viserys would say that. He's like, Viserys wouldn't replace Rhaenyra. He loved Rhaenyra. The commander of the Kingsguard is there, who's not up here. He's a Westerling. Basically, he tells Kristen to sit down and like to stop. It all gets really tense because basically Otto and like the other council members are like, we have to kill Rhaenyra, obviously, because if not, a war is going to start. And also, like, she still technically could claim the throne because she is heir. So we have to kill her and Daemon, or else it's going to go to shit. And when they talk about this, Otto then tells Sir Westerling, the commander of the Kingsguard, to go kill Rhaenyra and Daemon. Sir Westerling takes off his white cloak. He's like, I answer to the king only. When you figure out who king is, I will be back. And he drops his cloak and he walks out. So he's like, I will not stand for this. Helena is embroidering some bugs, watching her kids. And then Alicent and Otto approach her and they're like, where's Aegon? And Helena's like, I don't fucking know. Then Alicent tries to tell Helena that the king is dead. And as she says it, Helena's like, there's a beast beneath the boards. So while Helena and Alicent are having this little moment, Aemon walks in and he's kind of like, oh, it happened, didn't it? Yikes. There's these two twin guys who are not up here. I'm sorry. There were only so many pictures I could print out. Their names are Eric with an E and Eric with an A. So Otto tells Eric and Eric to find Aegon in the city, and Otto tells them that they go get Aegon and to bring Aegon to him and him only. Rhaenys is actually still in King's Landing after the whole Driftmark succession petition. So she's still there, and Lord Corlys is still sick and at sea. So Rhaenys is there, but she gets locked in her room. They lock her in her room. So she like opens her windows and she sees like a bunch of people being ushered, and we see those people then being ushered into jail. One of those people is Talia. Alicent then tells Kristen to go find Aegon and bring Aegon to her only. So now we're having Eric and Eric versus Kristen to go find Aegon. Aemon hears this and is like, I'm gonna go help because I know what Aegon does because he's disgusting. And Alicent's kind of reluctant, but Aemon's like, trust me, like I know where he is. Aemon takes Kristen to the Street of Silk, which is like frat row. It's not frat row. A row of like brothels and pleasure houses. They go there to ask for Aemond. A fun fact is that one of my acting professors from London plays the brothel woman. But alas, Michelle does not have Aegon, but she recognizes Aemon, and this is because a long time ago Aegon took Aemon to this particular brothel to like have sex because he's like, you're gonna want to wet your whistle at least once, babes. And Michelle, I'm keep calling her Michelle, that's not her character name, that's just the actress's name. And my professor sees Aemon and is like, you're older, wink. Back in the Red Keep, Otto gathers like all the great lords that are currently in King's Landing and brings them to the throne room and has them swear fealty to Aegon as their new king. And he's like, if you don't, we'll kill you. House Fel is like, no, we're keeping our oath to the princess. And then they get escorted out. Lord Caswell, who, if you remember, greeted Rhaenyra and Daemon when they first came to the Red Keep, is like, hesitant because he doesn't want to swear fealty to Aegon. He wants to swear fealty to Rhaenyra, but he sees what's happening and he's like, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut. While that's happening, Eric and Eric stumble upon, this is such a crazy plot point, they stumble upon an underground fighting ring for children, and they find one of Aegon's bastards there because they find a little boy with white hair in the corner, and one of them's like, is that Aegon's? And the other one's like, yeah. And basically Eric is telling Eric that Aegon spends a lot of time here, and also, yeah, Aegon sucks. Aegon sucks and he shouldn't be king. A young woman who works for the White Worm, Mysaria, approaches Eric and Eric and is like, if you pay a good price, the White Worm can tell you where Aegon is. So they go with her. While that's all happening, Aemond tells Kristen that he, Aemond, would actually want to be king if he was the heir, and that he would do better than Aegon, and that actually trying to find Aegon would not, if they don't find Aegon, that wouldn't be a bad thing because Aemond would just do it. Then Lord Caswell tries to ride out of the Red Keep and he's stopped by the guards and they're like, narc, narc, snitch, and they kill him. Then Alicent watches as the Silent Sisters prepare Viserys's body. Alicent then approaches Rhaenys in Rhaenys' chamber because she's still locked there. She's been locked in her room this whole time. They just locked her in there. And Rhaenys is like, this is so fucking disrespectful. Like, how dare you lock me in here? And Alicent's like, it's for your own safety. Also, by the way, the king's dead. Here's the thing, right? Is that Rhaenys could also technically argue for her right to the throne. So Alicent goes to her and is basically like, I need you to support me. And she lays it on really thick. Alicent is like, she's basically like, we'll give you everything you could ever want. Rhaenys is like, Alicent, you're wiser than I thought you were, but you think you're powerful, but you're not, because everything you do is in service to the men around you. Hit her up with that one. Then eventually Aemon and Kristen stumble upon Otto, Eric, and Eric meeting with Mysaria, and Otto is like in a cloak. He's in hiding. Mysaria wishes her condolences about the king's passing, and Otto's like, because they have not announced the king's death yet, so the only way she would know about that is if she had spies in the castle. Otto's like, oh, you're the real deal. Otto pays her price to find out where Aegon is, and Mysaria's like, thank you for the money. I'm not going to tell you where Aegon is until you stop the underground children fighting rings that we just brought up in this episode. Otto's like, I'll think about it. And Miss Ari's like, then I won't tell you where Aegon is. Eventually, Eric do find Aegon. He's like hiding underneath the prayer candles, and I believe it's the Great Sept. As Eric walk outside with Aegon in their hand, who shows up but Aemond and Kristen? Eric with an A is fighting Kristen. Eric with an E runs away, and Aemond is like grappling Aegon, who's trying to run away forever because he does not want to be king. Aegon's basically like, Aemond, I'll sail away on a ship and you can be king. And then as Aemond's like actually thinking about how that would give him everything he's ever wanted, Kristen walks up to him and is like, time to go, boys. Alicent confronts Otto about the fact that they are basically now going against each other, and Otto's like, well played, Alicent, you got Aegon. Alicent's like, yeah, also we're gonna do what I want. You're going to listen to me. We're not going to kill Rhaenyra. We're going to give her terms of surrender, basically, so that we don't have a war. And also, Aegon's going to be christened as, not christened because Christ doesn't exist. Aegon is going to be anointed as Aegon the Conqueror, as in Aegon the original Conqueror, as well as have Aegon's crown and Aegon's sword, Blackfire. As she says this, Otto's like, you look so much like your mother in some lights. Bro, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Larys shows up to Alicent's chambers after this, and he's like, I wonder how Otto got Aegon first. Alicent whips out her feet with socks on, okay? She's playing it coy. And Larys tells her that Otto has spies, has always had spies, and they watch everyone, including her. Alicent takes off her socks, so her dogs are out. Larys is like, one of his spies is Talia. Uh-oh. Larys is like, to stop the spy ring, we have to get rid of the person who's at the top of the ring. Then he starts jacking off to her feet. You know how in Game of Thrones we saw like brothers and sisters fucking? Yeah, this is worse. You're selling medieval feet pics in IRL? After that, everyone's like staring into fires like really pensively. It's really dramatic. Rhaenys is in her chambers, and as she's there, Eric with an E breaks her out. She tells him that she cannot leave Meleys, which is her dragon, because her dragon's still there. And he's like, you're gonna have to leave her, because it's not smart if you go right where everyone who's trying to find you and kill you is. So the city watch is like rounding up all the people and pushing them towards where they're going to crown Aegon, but the people don't know that yet. Aegon and Alicent are in the cart to the Sept for his crowning, and Aegon's like, I don't believe that Viserys, my dad, named me heir. I don't believe this is happening, and I don't believe you. And Alicent's like, he did. He like literally told me. And Aegon's like, yeah, but Viserys didn't like me. So like, why would he do that? He had 20 years to name me heir instead of Rhaenyra, and he didn't, because he didn't like me. Alicent then tells Aegon, she's like, listen, Otto, your grandfather, yeah, he's going to do everything in his power to get you to kill Rhaenyra. Do not listen to him. So then we see all the townspeople go to the Sept, which is where they're going to crown Aegon. Rhaenys is in the crowd, still in hiding. Otto announces Aegon's ascension to the throne. The people seem to be pretty happy with that. Actually, they're not disappointed or anything. They're a little confused at first, but they got the spirit. They begin the ceremony, and Rhaenys slips out, and Aegon in that moment accepts the power. He has the crown on. He's like, I could get used to this. Then suddenly, out of the bottom of the floor comes a dragon. It's Meleys with Rhaenys on her back, because they were above the dragon pit the whole time. Beware the beast beneath the boards. Helena was right again. Icon legend. Panic and chaos ensues. They're like trying to lock the doors, but Otto's like, open the fucking doors, let the people out. But the city watch is like closing the doors. It looks like basically that Rhaenys is going to command Meleys to burn down the entire Team Green, but she doesn't. She just flies away. And that's the end of that episode. I'm so tired. It's so late. I have not eaten yet. Okay. Episode 10 is entitled The Black Queen, which alludes to Rhaenyra as the rightful queen and heir, as well as Team Black, which is read on here just for aesthetic purposes. Rhaenyra finds Luke looking at Driftmark on their war table. He basically asks her if Corlys is going to die and he's going to have to ascend. Luke tells Rhaenyra that he doesn't want Driftmark again, because that would mean that everyone is dead, and also he doesn't think he's ready for it, and he doesn't think he'll be good at it. Rhaenyra's like, Luke, I get it. Listen, I was your age, 14, when they named me heir. I was also scared, but I learned how to accept that power and how to wield that power. And then Luke's like, easy for you. You're so perfect. And Rhaenyra's like, dude, I'm not perfect. Not in a bad way. Just like, you know, nobody's perfect. I gotta work it. Then Rhaenys arrives on Dragonback and is like, hey, Rhaenyra, your dad's dead. There's chaos in King's Landing, and they also made Aegon king. Daemon's like, how did Viserys die? And Rhaenys is like, I didn't know. I don't know how he died because they locked me in my room the entire fucking time. Again, Rhaenyra is still pregnant. Like, she hasn't given birth yet. And she's like in a lot of pain. Rhaenys was like, it's not my war to start, but like someone has to start it because there's gonna be a war. And it didn't feel right for me to burn up all of them. And then Rhaenyra like literally starts going into labor. It's not good because like the baby's not ready yet. Daemon is in the war room plotting while Rhaenyra is like in another room going through like the most painful labor ever. Rhaenys finds Jace and Luke training, is like, go to your mom. She needs help. There's a lot happening right now. Like, you guys can't just be out here fucking around. And they listen and they go and find Rhaenyra in labor. She tells them that their grandfather Viserys has died and that Aegon has taken to the throne. She's in a lot of pain. So she's like, I'm gonna give birth right now, but hey, like, Jace, you're gonna be heir. You know, she's like, I can't do anything right now because I'm literally about to have a baby. So can you go keep your uncle stepdad in check? Jace then goes to Daemon in the war room and is like, you're not to do anything while Rhaenyra is in labor. Rhaenyra is like actively calling for Daemon in so much pain, and everyone keeps looking at him and is like, dude, like, go to your wife. Daemon brings Jace out to, so they have 2 White Cloaks there, one of whom is Sir Westerling. Basically, Daemon has Jace stand with him as Daemon brings out Caraxes, his dragon, and is like, I need you guys both to swear fealty to the rightful queen, Rhaenyra. While this is all happening, the handmaids are like trying to help Rhaenyra give birth, and Rhaenyra is like refusing help. She's like in so much, like, I can't emphasize just how much pain Rhaenyra is in right now. I like blacked this scene out. Like, I watched this I was like watching this. I was like, I've watched this before. How do I not remember this? Rhaenyra pulls out the fetus from her vagina. It's not fully formed. It's big. So you could tell it was like later on in the pregnancy, because she was also showing, but it's not like a baby. It's dead, if that wasn't clear. It's a dead fetus. And she like picks it up and she starts rocking in her hands, and this is when Daemon walks in and he sees her holding the fetus. We see Rhaenyra prepping the child instead of the weird sisters. Oh my god. Instead of the silent sisters. And then while that's happening, Daemon goes out to the sea and like takes a knee. There is a funeral for the baby. Sir Eric with an E approaches, and everyone's like, what the fuck are you doing here? He bends a knee and swears loyalty to Rhaenyra, and he gives her Viserys' crown. Daemon takes the crown and places it on Rhaenyra's head, and then he bends the knee. Everyone else bends the knee, but Rhaenys. It's actually really cool because like Rhaenyra's on like one side. There's like it's like a little like this kind of moment. I don't know what you call it geographically, but they're like on Dragonstone and it's like this. And then Rhaenyra's on one top end, everyone else is bending a knee, and then Rhaenys is on the other side, also like just as high up as Rhaenyra, so they're kind of like equals because they're both like equally could claim rights to the throne in their own right, but also they're both women and they've both been screwed over. After everyone bends the knee, the war table is lit, the armory is being stocked and prepared. Rhaenyra then goes to the war table and she has Baela and Rhaena serve as cupbearers to her like she was to Viserys. It's actually very sweet. She's like, yes, women. They have a meeting and they all talk about like which houses are their enemies, which are allies, and which they could ask to be allies. The big ones in question are House Stark in the north. Out of everyone, they're pretty traditional, so they may not accept a woman as heir, but they did swear fealty like 20 years ago. Because they're honorable, they won't go back on an oath. Another one is Baratheon. The reason why the Baratheons are a potential ally is because Rhaenys is part Baratheon. Like, they have family. They have Baratheon family. And the Baratheons have often married into the Velaryons and the Targaryens before. And then they also have the Aarons because Emma, Rhaenyra's mom, was an Aeron. So they're like, these are the 3 big houses that are powerful, but also in question as to who they could align with, Team Black or Team Green. There also seems to be a lot of tension between Rhaenyra and Daemon because Daemon just wants to go to war and fight, and Rhaenyra is actually showing restraint, which is really good. So while this is happening, they're interrupted with news that there is a ship coming to them with a green dragon banner on it. Again, Team Green. So who is in that ship but Otto? We have a callback basically to the moment earlier in the series where Daemon I think it was like episode 2 or 3. I can't remember. Just rewind. Daemon and Otto meet on like the little strip of land that like meets the shore with the castle, basically. Rhaenyra flies over on Syrax again. And Otto tells Rhaenyra Alicent's terms that they laid out. Give the throne to Aegon, basically. And she can stay on Dragonstone. And that they won't kill her. Or basically the terms. And then Rhaenyra like rips off the Hand of the King badge off of Otto's cloak and like throws it in the ocean. It's pretty badass. And then Otto's like, Maester, come here. And the Maester gives a page, and it's the book that Rhaenyra ripped out a long time ago of Nymeria that she gave to Alicent. So Daemon like readies his sword, as is everyone else, but Rhaenyra's like, I'm gonna give my answer tomorrow. And she is kind of considering the terms, which pisses off a lot of the men in the room, specifically Daemon. Rhaenyra's like, everyone else leave but Daemon. And so her and Daemon finally talk because there's been a lot of tension lately. She tells Daemon of the Song of Ice and Fire, Aegon's dream. And she's like, I'm trying to keep it together because it's my sworn duty. I swore to my dad that I was going to unite the realm and I will not try and start a war. Daemon starts to choke her and says that dreams didn't make them kings. Dragons did. Just when you start to like Daemon, he does some freak ass shit like that and you're like, I can't defend you, dude. And then he stops choking her and Rhaenyra's like, he never told you, did he? Because Viserys never respected Daemon enough to even consider him as heir, to even think about telling him Aegon's dream. Lord Corlys is feeling better. Thank God. And Rhaenys is like in his room. They're back on Driftmark. And Rhaenys is like, Corlys, you abandoned me when I needed you the most. And also, by the way, your brother's dead. And Corlys tells Rhaenys that she was right and that he was too ambitious and it cost them too much. And he tells her that they're not going to pick a side. Rhaenys says that Jace and Luke and Joffrey are all at risk. And Corlys is like, yeah, but remember Rhaenyra like was complicit in our son's death. And Rhaenys is like, Rhaenyra actually told me that she wasn't. And also, Rhaenyra is doing a really good job. She's the only person who's showing any ounce of restraint, and she's the only reason why the realm hasn't plunged into war so far. So Rhaenys gives her flowers to Rhaenyra. Then we're back in the war room at Dragonstone. Corlys enters. Rhaenys is also there with Rhaena and Baela. So they're all there. They're walking in. All the Velaryons are there. Corlys seems to be kind of like testing Rhaenyra a bit. Corlys declares that what the Hightowers did was treason, and he gives his support for Team Black. That's right, baby. That's right, Team Black. That's right. That's right. With this, Corlys announces, basically, with their alliance, that they, Team Black, now have the Stepstones and therefore the Narrow Sea completely under their control, which means that they can control all of the trade into King's Landing and basically like do a siege. Jace is like, hey, here's a good idea. We can be messengers and go talk to the Starks, the Baratheons, and the Aarons. Great idea, Jace. Nothing can go wrong there. Rhaenyra is also like, yeah, great idea, Jace. And she's like, Jace, you're going to go to the north to talk to the Starks, as well as the Eyrie to talk to the Aarons. And then Luke is going to go to Storm's End. And then Rhaenyra also privately tells Jace and Luke that they are going as messengers and not warriors, so they're not to do anything stupid. She also tells Jace that he's going to be meeting with Cregan Stark, who is also his age, and so that they can kind of bond over that. She then tells Luke when he goes to the Baratheons to just kind of like rely on honor because they're proud people. So then they agree to what Rhaenyra says and they go fly off. Daemon goes to tame a dragon. His name is Vermithor. He's very big. Then we have Luke going to Storm's End, which is the seat of the Baratheons. It's Storm's End, so it's very stormy. That's why it's called Storm's End. He walks into the room, and who is there but Aemond? Aemond is there. He's standing near Boros Baratheon, who is currently head of the house, and one of Boros's daughters. Luke hands off his message from his mom, Rhaenyra. Boros can't read, which I thought was really funny. He's like, where's the maester? And then the maester reads the note and tells him what the note says. So that was a funny little characterization moment that I really loved, which was showing and not telling. So that was really smart, writers. Good for you. Boros is like, this is a fucking joke, right? Like, this is a joke because at least Aegon and Aemond came with a marriage pact. So Aemond's there to ask the Baratheons to swear fealty to Aegon, and then he's offered up as someone to marry. So he's going to marry one of the Baratheon daughters. He's basically like, go fuck off, Luke. Like, you're just asking me to remind me of my oaths. You don't remind a Baratheon anything. So that didn't work out. So Luke starts to go home, and Aemond tells him to wait, and he calls him Lord Strong and also accuses him and his family of stealing his brother's throne. Luke is like, I'm only here as a messenger, dude. Like, I don't want to fight. Aemond pulls off his eye patch, which has like a blue sapphire, and he tells Luke that he wants him to take out one of his own eyes so he can give it to Alicent as a gift. And Bros is like, this cannot happen in my hall. Take it out of the room. So they do. So Luke runs away and he goes back on his little teeny dragon, who's very little itty bitty like him. And it appears that the storm has gotten worse and Luke is like nervous to fly in the storm, but he like tells his dragon Arex to like be calm and just focus. And as he's flying, Luke can like hear a distant growling. And as he's flying, suddenly Vhagar like literally eclipses Arex. He's so big, and Aemond starts like chasing Luke on Vhagar, and it's like this huge like cat and mouse chase. It's horrible. It's so scary. Arex the dragon, not Luke, Arex the dragon gets pissed and blows fire at Vhagar, and Vhagar then gets pissed because this little thing just blew fire on her. Aemond and Luke are struggling to get control of their dragons. They're still wild animals, like they don't owe anything to anyone, so they're gonna do what they want. Luke eventually like gets a control of Arex and they make it into the clear, or so we think. It's actually the eye of the storm, babe. It's just the middle, so the rest of the storm still has to happen. It's a metaphor. Do you understand? It's a metaphor, babe. It's a metaphor. So Luke is like in the clear, he thinks, and he starts to come down a bit. Suddenly out of nowhere, Vhagar eats him. And Aemon's like, no. Yeah, so Luke is dead. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. Aemond, that's like gotta be the most awkward ride home ever. Anyways, then we cut back to Dragonstone. Rhaenyra again is at the war table. Daemon comes and tells her something, and then we can assume it's about Luke's death. And Emma Darcy gives the performance of a lifetime in like just 10 seconds. Emma as Rhaenyra like turns around to the fire, so we don't see Rhaenyra's reaction right away, turns around, and like you can see this face, and it's just basically saying like the war has begun. That is it. I have like 6 hours of footage I have to edit for this. I'm terrified. So I'm hoping I can get this out, however long this is, on June the 16th, which is also my 1-year anniversary of starting YouTube. Yay! I want to do more videos like this. If you like this, I would love to do this for the original Game of Thrones series. This took me a lot of work, so I will only do that if that's something people are interested in. I have read the books though. I haven't read Fire and Blood, so that's why I'm just relying on the TV show here, so I could do the books as well. But just let me know what you want there. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.